What's going on, Radio Free Van listeners, and welcome to the introduction to Battletech. So Ryan's been talking about doing this for a while now. He's been saying that he's got to just get on and teach you fellas how to play some Battletech. And so here we are. We've got all of the tech engineers together and like getting this to happen for you fellas out there. And I don't know, it's about to go down. Ryan's about to show you all the pages that you need to go to. We actually also have a special guest over there too. Barely see the side of his face there.
Yep. Wait,
Chris Duncan. So also the most intelligible person as far in Battletech, as far as I know.
So I think here, does it show Scott? Is that Scott there?
Yeah, but he's down there. Like you see where he's on the screen for you guys. He's like the little dude. So all I see is his little baby face. He's there, but.
So if I click his picture where he's the big picture on my screen, though, that's what everybody sees, right?
Nope, it's just you, buddy. You're the presenter. Everybody only sees you with your big head.
Well, what about when I click my little links here? Do they see those?
No, you're not sharing your screen.
Oh, well, how do I share my screen? Click the share screen thing?
Yep.
We're learning as we go here, folks, as you can tell.
So
yeah, I would have fixed my hair if I knew I was doing this live. Sorry, ladies. But...
So, Ryan, it's all you. Take the heat.
Okay, so I got my page of, several pages of notes here. So that's kind of what we're going through here. So the first thing we're going to start off is why we're doing this video. Well, we're doing this video because lots of people have been asking for it, and Battletech is not the easiest game to jump right into if you don't have someone to help you. Do you agree with that?
Agreed.
What about you, Scott?
Yeah, I would. So
it's really not that the game is like massively overly complicated or whatever. The main reason that this is because of the kind of the way the history of the license is, I would say. So what we're going to do, let me go to the Wikipedia page here. Wow, hang on. I got to go back to, let me share my screen. And then go to the Wikipedia page. So, you see the Wikipedia page, Scott?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Oh, this is Sarna. We need the actual Wikipedia page. Okay, so this is just Wikipedia. You type in Battletech. So, this gives you the general info, obviously, about Battletech. So, what we're going to look at here is it's a wargaming military science fiction franchise. It was launched in 1984. So what happened was this FASA company got into financial trouble, and they had to sell off their licenses to basically keep the doors open. Well, their most popular license was Battletech. And you can see in 2001, they sold it to WizKids. Well, WizKids basically just wanted it to have a recognizable name to make a clicks game out of. And they didn't really give a crap about the actual real deal game or the fluff or any of that stuff. They just wanted a recognizable giant robot thing they could make clicks out of. So WizKids bought it, started making clicks stuff.
And jumped the timeline forward like almost 85 years.
Yeah, which we'll get to that in a second. Then in 2003, the clicks phase, not just the Battletech clicks game, but pretty much all clicks game, kind of went off a cliff sales-wise, and it was purchased by Topps. And it's the same Topps that does baseball trading cards. So then Topps bought the license, and they were reached out to by this company called Catalyst Games Labs. Catalyst Games Labs makes RPG games, not necessarily miniatures games, and people bugged them to basically redo classic Battletech or reprint the books or whatever. So Catalyst contacted Topps, and basically, even though Topps owns the license, Catalyst how would you say it? They pay to use the license. Mm-hmm. They don't own it, but they pay to use it. So Catalyst has the license to put the books out and stuff. So you can see that it's gone through numerous expansions, original game. There's several board games, role-playing games, video games, collectible card game, more than 1,000 novels, television series. It's been owned by a bunch of people. So what that's led to is a lot of the fluff, a lot of the rules, a lot of the just everything about the game is kind of divided up over all these like different companies. And Catalyst and Tops owns all that now, but it's still fairly fragmented. So like if you do any types of searches or you try to look for something or Google something, who knows what you're going to get back? Because the company's been through so many hands, it can be very confusing when you try to research anything. So you have to like know going into it that certain things are fractured and know actually what to look for.
And there's been a plethora of legal issues that have plagued the title, which has kind of gotten to where Catalyst is pretty much just trying to go its own way with it from here on.
Right, which a lot of those lawsuits have settled, but that was so we'll get to that when we talk about the unseen. So anyway, if you go to this Wikipedia page, you can read a brief history of the license. It continues down here. It talks about WizKids buying it and all that stuff. So that's kind of why the game is the way it is, and that's a lot of the big reason that people have a hard time getting into it. Also, Catalyst, because they're an RPG gaming company, like a pen and paper, like they do Shadowrun, and now they're doing some D&D stuff and some things like that.
Yep.
They're not really a miniatures company, so I don't think they're not really in tune with the miniature wargame market, even though they own the license for the game. It's just kind of like a thing that they do because they own the license and they might as well do it, but it's not something they're really tuned towards. Is that
correct?
Okay.
Marketing wise, no.
Yeah. So that's kind of the basic reasons why. So we'll talk about what is Battletech. So we'll talk about a little bit about the basic fluff of Battletech. So Battletech, basically, the history of Battletech up until about 1985 is the same as normal human history. And then after 1985, it starts to basically diverge from our normal history and things change. So when they first launched the game, even though things that obviously happened between 1985 and the year 3039, they still kind of launched the game in between the years of 3025 and 3039, which is called the First Succession War, or Fourth Succession War era. And when they launched the game, they had the main houses of the Inner Sphere there, and that's kind of what the game launched as. And then once they launched it there, they kind of went back in and filled in the history before about why things are like that leading in, and they also advanced the timeline. And Battletech, from a game standpoint, it's always had a timeline that advances. It's not like how 40K used to be, where it was like 30 seconds to midnight, locked there forever, and you always played. Battletech, every once in a while, they'll push the timeline forward, and they've been doing that since the game came out in 1984. 1984 was when the game launched. So you always get to look forward to new things coming out. They've actually we'll get to what happened there, but they just started releasing some new fluff here recently to push the game beyond
31 and 55.
Yeah, which is where the game is at now. So let's see. So if you really want to dig into the fluff of this game, in my opinion, the best way to do it as a beginner is this dude's YouTube page. So you got this guy named Critical Rocket. Me and Scott, you there, Scott?
Yep.
Me and Scott are big fans of this guy, to say the least, I would say. What do you think?
Yes. Yeah, he's awesome, man. And he really, I think his page is primarily dedicated for Mech Warrior Online video game, but he really puts a lot of effort into putting out a great product to cover all the lore and history and stuff, and use those nice Mech Warrior Online aesthetics to tie into Battletech.
Right. So if you go to this Critical Rocket YouTube page and you click his videos here, he's got several playlists. You can go to videos or you can go to playlists. He's got this Lore Warrior Online series, and this is like his fluff series. And then if you look, he's got several different Lore Warrior playlists. So here's his clan playlist, and here's the Great Houses playlist. So like if you want to hear everything you know about the clans, there's 19 clan videos. Here's all the Great House videos. He's got more playlists than this. I don't know why it's not.
Yeah, He has like.
Well, I know he's got
Solaris
these
and
118, but he's got some on the periphery. He's got all kinds of stuff on here. You'll just have to go through his page. I'm actually used to looking at it on my phone. This is slightly different than what I'm normally used to look at. But my favorite videos, if you want to start out and just get the history of the fluff, go to playlists. Go to this Lore Warrior one where there's 118 videos. And scroll down through here and find the ones on the Star League. They should be near the bottom here. Yep. So you got the Star League Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, Part 4. So this is kind of like, if for people who listen to the show that are familiar with the Horus Heresy, this is like the Horus Heresy, like how the Horus Heresy is attached to 40K. This Star League stuff is basically like the Horus Heresy of Battletech. It's the reason why everything in the later timeline that you're typically going to play in is the way it is because of the stuff that's gone over in these videos right here. So definitely listen to these. So the basic fluff of the game is you have this thing called the Star League. There's a big civil war. During the Civil War, the Star League breaks apart. The bad guy that caused it to break apart is defeated. The general that defeated him is just kind of hanging out, and all the people that were part of the Star League all at once try to declare themselves the new First Lord of the Star League and basically start fighting again right after this guy just stopped this big civil war. And he's tired of the fighting. So he decides, I'm just going to gather up everybody who is a scientist, all this, who's keen on all this technology, gather up all the war material I can, all of the big warships, basically everything that's advanced technology. Everybody will go with him, and they just leave. They take off. They go on this thing called the Exodus and leave. And the people they leave behind, there's these 5 great houses. You have House Davian, House Kurita, House Liao, House Merrick, and House Steiner. And each of these great houses, they're basically, each one's kind of set up in a feudal system where you have like one dictator-esque person. But they all basically are constantly fighting with each other, and the leader of each of those houses is always trying to become, like, launch the new Star League and run everything. And you have these things called the Succession Wars, which is that's what's going on. It's all these people fighting to take over the throne. So what's funny about this is Battletech actually predates Game of Thrones, but you'll hear a lot of people say Battletech is Game of Thrones in space, which is accurate, but technically Game of Thrones is really Battletech in a sci-fi universe because Battletech came first. But if you're familiar at all with Game of Thrones and how you have fighting, but you also have all this political backstabbing between all the great houses, and then within the houses themselves, you have several individuals that, even though they're supposed to be on the same team, are backstabbing each other to get to the top of their team. All of that goes on all the time in Battletech.
Many levels of political.
Yes. So if you like political intrigue and you like things that's not just like fighting and combat, the universe is very cool. The other thing about Battletech is it's very hard sci-fi. It's definitely more Star Trek than Star Wars. It even goes so far, there's no intelligent alien life in Battletech. It's all humans. There are what would be considered alien life, but they're not intelligent. It's like animals or things like that. So go ahead. What's up?
Sorry. Each of those 5 great houses he mentioned too all kind of have their own like theme and aesthetic, so you can pick the one you like. Like Steiner is a good example of like World War I, Germans in space. Liao is kind of like a communist China, like People's Republic sort of thing. Kurita is like the traditional feudal Japanese sort of setup, and then Davians are kind of like American, really. I mean, they're like, space Americans and stuff like that. More of a modern day capitalistic society, something like that.
Yeah, I'd say the Merrick's more like the EU.
Yeah. Yep. There you go.
But anyway, you got not those aren't the only factions. You have those. Then, spoiler alert: the people who left with Kerensky end up becoming the clans, and at some point they come back to reconquer the Inner Sphere. And then the clans are split into you got Warden clans and Crusader clans, and I'm not going to get like fully into the fluff. This is supposed to just be a brief thing, but they start as 20 clans, and then while they're in clan space before they come back, some of those clans get killed off or absorbed by other clans. And then I think by the time that they come back to the Inner Sphere, there's only like 17 or 18 left. Not all of them come to the Inner Sphere at once. There's like the original Crusader clans, and then a few more leak in. And then there's always some that have stayed in the home world and never took part in any of the coming to the Inner Sphere. But you have those clans, and they all have their own fluff and flavor. The clans overall, the closest thing I can think of in like generic sci-fi terms that people would be familiar with would be Klingons.
Yep.
They're very close to Klingons. Like they have a very like
warrior-based society.
Yeah, like the warriors are at the peak of the hierarchy, and everything's kind of almost might makes right. They do have some political stuff in there, but it's like everything in the clans is basically shit talking, challenging each other, and combat. Like that's just like basically all they do. It's pretty funny if you read the fluff. Just because of how they behave. They are humans, but they're like extreme humans. Like I said, they're like if humans acted like Klingons, I guess. Then you also, so outside of the great houses, the great five houses, you have like smaller periphery nations that are just like what their name implies, they're periphery stuff. You have pirates, you have mercenary companies, all kinds of stuff. So there's all kinds of different playable factions in Battletech. The other thing about the game that's important to know is the game is broken into eras. And what I mean by that is you have like the Star League era, which is when the Star League was around. Then you have like the Succession War era, which is when all the Succession Wars were going on. Then you have what's called the Clan Invasion era, where when the clans came in. Then it goes into the Civil War, which is where you had House Steiner and House Davian basically interwed and became this thing called the Federated Commonwealth. It was this big super nation. And they end up splitting back apart, and they call that the Civil War era. Then after the Civil War era, you had this thing called the Jihad, where things go real south and everybody's fighting each other, and it like things get real insane and things get blown to such hell. Basically, everything regresses, and you bring on this thing called the Dark, or you get into the Republic. You get in the Republic era, so you have the Republic, then normal Republic, and then you have everything goes south, and you have the Dark Age, which is like where things regress a bunch. So the cool thing about those eras, if anybody's ever played like Flames of War or something like that, when you play with your friends, you kind of choose an era to play within. And that kind of puts everybody on the same technological page. Because if you take some 3039 mechs and try to fight them with some like 3150 mechs, you're going to get trashed. I mean, let's just be honest. The technology level is just, it's almost too hard to overcome. You do have points in the game with battle values, but at a certain point, it's like, yeah, that's great. I outnumber you like whatever 3-1, but it's still like you're shooting twice as far, you're dealing twice as much damage, you have all this special. It's just, even though you're going to outnumber me a bunch, it's just you're not going to be able to hold a candle. Also, like as the timeline goes on, obviously new mechs are created, and the old ones that were created before, some are extinct. Like some mechs are only like in between two real short timelines. And then after those, pre and before that timeline, they're not available due to reasons. Sometimes you'll have a factory that makes a certain mech that it's held by the Capellans. And then the Davians push in and then take over that factory. So then that particular mech goes from being a Capellan mech to a Davian mech. So depending on what era you play, it's going to determine what mechs are available to what faction, what level of technology there is. So like X pulse lasers or like a later timeline thing. So if you're playing in 3050, you're not going to have any X pulse lasers. Right. You're going to play in the later timeline. So I know people don't know what the hell an X pulse laser is if you don't play, but I'm just explaining that there's
each era introduces new weapon systems. basically.
Correct. So you're going to want to pick an era that you want to play in, and they're all fun and they all have a different flavor to them. And what's crazy is BattleTech, there are sometimes whole entire factions die off. So like if you want to play Word of Blake is only around through basically late Clan Invasion through the end of the Jihad, and that's it. So, and they don't really start doing anything until like the Civil War. They're around and they kind of do stuff, but they don't really kick off things.
Smoke Jaguars?
Yeah. So, yeah, Smoke Jaguars, which is a clan, they get killed off at some point. So, there's a lot of factions that come and go depending. So, like I said, certain of these factions, you're going to want to play a certain timeline if you want to use them, because that's the only timeline that they exist in.
I think that's very cool too. So if you want to play like you can take units that only existed in that specific timeline and kind of represent them, and have that sort of individual kind of thing going on.
Well, for a long time, everybody in this game loved playing mercenaries, and I'll tell you what, if you got fond of a certain mercenary company, you might have a bad day when the Jihad rolls around.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of merc companies, because mercenaries are like, they definitely come and go, because a lot of them are basically held together by whoever the main person is. Like Colonel so-and-so is like the key guy. Whenever he gets old and retires or dies off, passes on to a son, or gets killed in battle, a lot of times it was just his forced personality holding those guys together, and they don't last very long after that. Some of them do. Some of them have went on successful through leader after leader, but a lot of them, are like a short time span.
Since the birth of the genre, there's only like a handful of maybe 3 or 4 units that are still around. Just the very beginning that's still around now.
Yeah, I think there's 5, like from the very beginning of whatever. So the other thing that's kind of key, that's kind of neat about BattleTech, there aren't, like, when you talk about entire factions, there's not really any what I would call this is the bad guy faction. Like in 40K, you could say like Chaos Space Marines are the bad guys. In BattleTech, there are individual people that aren't very nice for sure. So like if you're, for example, you could consider like when Romano Leao was running the Capellan Confederation, probably the bad guys, right? But when she dies and Sun Tzu comes in, it's a little like, if you look at it from his perspective, he's not necessarily a bad guy. Like
he's an asshole, but he's not a bad guy.
Right. Like I don't like him. I'm not a fan, but I can't say that he's a bad guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and one faction might be one way and then different in another era. Like Jade Falcon, yeah, they're a Clan Invasion thing, but it's all a matter of perspective. They don't they don't do anything that's like, well, that's Space Hitler,
Well, they do later on.
Malvina did.
Yeah, they do later on, but that's like one specific, timeline and one character.
So the same thing with like the Davians. They're always kind of painted as like almost like the good guys, but they do get some rulers in the later timeline that is like they're like fucking crazy Roman. Yeah, they're almost like crazy Roman Caesars.
And they're not. If the Davians are taking over all your planets and killing all your people and shit, then you don't view them as that. If that's your faction, depends on the stick you're at.
Yeah, but there's really no like real clear. These guys are bad. They're, like I said, there are individuals that are definitely painted that way, and sometimes those individuals lead factions, which kind of like give that faction a lean in that direction. But they're not like that permanently.
Triana with Steiner.
Yeah. So it's almost like the WWE where people turn heel and then become a face again and back and forth. That's kind of what goes on. So the other thing about this game is you can play it 2 ways. There's classic BattleTech and then there's Alpha Strike. And it uses the same miniatures. Basically, it's just 2 different rule sets. So classic takes a lot longer to play if you play with say you played with 12 mechs, which is a company for Inner Sphere, that game would probably last between 2 and 6 hours.
Yep, easy.
Yeah. Whereas if you played a company size game in Alpha Strike, you're probably looking at an hour. The main difference is I can pull up a sheet here where people can see. when you play classic Battletech, you have these things called a record sheet. We'll just go to a 3039 one. We'll look at a mech. All right, so I don't know what this is. A Zeus. So this is your classic Steiner mech, your Lyran mech. So this is a typical classic mech warrior sheet. So you'll have the name of the mech, its movement. So it walks 4, it runs 6. This has no jump capabilities, no jump jets. It tells what era it's from. It's a Succession War variant. It tells what it weighs. It's an 80-ton mech. And then this is its equipment and weapons. This is the location in which they're located in. So you can see like this medium laser is in the center torso. Large lasers left torso. That's what these mean. This is how much heat each weapon generates when it's fired. This is how much damage each individual weapon does if that individual weapon hits. And these are the ranges, short, medium, and long for each individual weapon. So all that's broke down by weapon. This is your battle value cost. So if you're playing with battle value, which is based on your point system, this is what the mech costs. Over here is its armor. So when you hit something, you have to roll to see what location is hit. So mechs have arms, left, right arm, left, right torso, center torso, head, left leg, right leg. And then if you're shooting from the back, the arms, legs, and head and all that's the same, but the torsos have a rear facing, which has less armor. Then once you get through the armor, you have this thing called internal structure right here. So it's the same thing. Like once you start chewing through the armor on the arm, you start hitting the internals. Once you start hitting internals, you can start damaging equipment that's located in the arm. So if you look over here, there's a critical hits table. This is left arm. So if I start doing hits in here, I can start damaging any of the equipment that's carried in here. Well, we are not going to get into how all that works, but this chart right here tells you where exactly all the equipment is located. So if you buy your Zeus model and you're playing a weird variant that they don't make a model for, but you get one close and you want to convert your model, you always look at your sheet here and it'll tell you exactly where the equipment's at, and you can try to convert your model to actually match the chart, which is kind of fun, which we'll get to later, kind of how that works. So this is your critical chart once you start taking critical hits. And then down here where it says heat, where we talked about up here where your weapons generate heat, when you fire a weapon, say it makes 5 heat, you keep track of all that. So this mech has 17 heat sinks. So at the end of a turn after it's fired, it cancels out 17 heat that's been generated. So no matter what it does, if it moves, if it shoots weapons, sometimes an enemy will shoot you with a weapon that gives you extra heat. You may be in an environment like next to a volcano or near lava that increases heat. You have to add up all that to figure out how much heat you've generated. Then you will subtract 17 from that. And then whatever is left over, you start marking up on this chart. And then you can see right here, as you go up that chart, wherever you reach, you start taking penalties. Also, when you fire, you're going to have all kinds of modifiers and everything else. So this is classic. This is basically how it works. If you go to, if you're playing Alpha Strike, the reason it goes so much faster, I need to hide this, it's in the way.
So kind of what he's about to show you guys is essentially classic plays with a record sheet that looks more like a character sheet from a role-playing game or something where you need to keep track of things. What he's about to show you now simplifies that down to like more of a 40K style stat line, and things are set at a value.
So this is the Alpha Strike rules. So the other thing about Alpha Strike is the rules are free for that. The individual mech rules are free. The rule book's not free. So that big sheet that I just showed you for that Zeus, this is the same Zeus, but this is the Alpha Strike card. So basically, the Alpha Strike card is this is troop type. So this is a battle mech. That's what BM is. This is the size. So this is size 4. There's rules that will tell you, like, if you're behind a size 2 piece of terrain, this would get covered but not be obscured, things like that. This is your to hit modifier. So if this thing moves at all, it's going to apply a minus, basically a +1 modifier to the enemy trying to hit it. So in the other game, there's all kinds of modifiers. This just tells you what the modifier is at the next move, and it doesn't change. This is its movement value, which is 8 inches. Also, in Alpha Strike, when you move, you literally just measure, pick the model up, move it to the end of wherever you want to move it, and turn it to face any direction. Where in Classic, every hex facing that you turn counts as a movement point. Then you move. It's a lot more complicated in movement. So the way this works is you don't have individual weapons. Basically, what it is at short range, this thing deals 3 damage. So you roll to hit. If you hit at short range, you just apply 3 damage. Same thing with medium, but it's 2 harder to hit at medium because you're shooting further. That's what this +2 is. And then at long range. So this thing does 3 damage regardless of range. It's just 2 harder to hit at medium, 2 harder to hit at long. So say this thing was shooting itself. If this thing hit at medium, it would deal 3 damage. You would simply just mark off 3 circles. That's it. So these where it says A, or its armor, these here are its internal structure. Once you start doing damage here, you roll for critical hits, just like the same thing, and you roll on a chart. The chart's in the rule book. I don't have it in front of me, but it tells you what it is, and you just mark these little circles, and it tells you exactly what the modifier is, what happens for each circle that you mark off. Once all these circles are gone, the mech's dead. This overheat value, so instead of tracking heat, you don't track any heat. This thing has an overheat value of 0, so it does nothing. Say this thing had an overheat value of 2. You could choose to overheat it, and you mark this first box off, and if this was overheat value of 2, it adds 2 to each of its damage categories here. But you go up heat scale 1, and there's some modifiers for that. If you play the advanced rules in Alpha Strike, these little special rules down here give you basically special abilities. And then your points value for Alpha Strike's up here. So all these Alpha Strike cards for every unit is free online. The Classic Battletech, everything you basically have to pay for the record sheets. So that's kind of the difference between Classic and Alpha Strike. The cool thing is if you build a model, buy a model, paint it up, you can use it for both games. And for Alpha Strike, all that really means if you want to try Alpha Strike, all you got to do is buy the core rulebook, which I think we can look it up here.
$15 downloadable PDF off of Drive-Thru RPG.
Yep, which is right here. Any rules you want to buy, just come to this website, Drive-Thru RPG.
You have a smartphone, it'll download it right on there. You can copy the link and paste it in your notes, and it'll be there. So
we'll type in Alpha Strike right here. It's this right here. You click it. Like Scott says, it's on sale right now for $10.05.
Oh, snap. Black Friday.
Black Friday. So anyway, you just add to cart, download it, whatever. You have the rules. Boom, done. Once you have that, you don't need anything else. You can just go to this this Battletech Master List site right here, Battletech Master Unit List, and it will have all the Alpha Strike cards. You just search for a unit, you find the unit, it has this Alpha Strike card. We're going to get more into this site here in a minute. So that's kind of the main difference between the two. Do you want to add anything to that, Scott? Is that
no? I mean, all in all, in either version of the game, the rules are now are pretty much consolidated. For the rules, just the main rule book. So Alpha Strike, this is available for free online. Classic Battletech, all you need is whatever technical readout which is just record sheet. That has your record sheet in it, and then the main rule book, and that's it.
Yeah, which we'll get to how all that works. So, the other thing that's you can do in the game, you can play on a hex map, or you can play hexless. So Alpha Strike is the default mode for Alpha Strike is to play on normal terrain without hexes. The default mode for Classic is to play on hexes. That said, you can play either way. So there's a downloadable PDF for either version. There's a downloadable PDF for Alpha Strike to convert it to hexes, and there's a downloadable PDF for Classic to convert it to hexless. The other thing you can do, which is what we do, is literally just kind of write your own rules because it's pretty basic. So when you looked at all those ranges on that sheet that we had earlier, these ranges are supposed to be in hexes. So like the range on this LRM short range is 7 hexes. We just say it's in inches. It's pretty simple. So you just go at 7 inches instead of 7 hexes. And then when you move your model, instead of like counting individual hexes, we just say that these movements are in inches. And then when you turn a hex facing, it just counts as 1. It's pretty self-explanatory. Whenever you go to fire a mech, because it's on a hex base, you simply take one of those laser lights that projects a beam. I know for a fact Army Painter makes a good one. You just line that up with like the back of your hex, and it draws a line on the table, and that's your firing arc. So pretty easy to convert. If people have questions about that, they can let us know. The other thing is this battle value down here, if you decide to play classic, there went through an addition change. So you have, when you look at certain things like Sarner or whatever, you'll see it mention BV 1.0, BV 2.0. 1.0 is the old version. They just, sometimes it'll be listed just for like posterity or people who still want to use that. But if you're playing current up-to-date rules, you always just look at the 2.0. And a lot of the newer mechs, because they came out after the changeover, they're only going to have the 2.0 cost. So if you only see one battle value on something, it's typically the 2.0. But just make sure. And if you go to double check, you can always go to that this Battletech master unit list site, and any of the battle values that are on here are always current, because this is run by Tops and Catalyst, and everything on here is the most up-to-date information. So we explained all that. So if you want to play Alpha Strike, we showed you, that's the cover of the book right here. It's got a Mad Cat on it. It says Battletech Alpha Strike. That's the Alpha Strike rulebook. So if you want to play classic Battletech, it's called, what is it? Total Warfare. They just came out with a brand new rule book. So this is the cover you want. This blue cover with this old classic atlas on the front of it. This is the rule book you want. So if you buy a rule book, whether it's a hard copy or a download, make sure this is the one you get with this cover. This is the most up to date. Right now it's on sale once again for $10. So super cheap.
It covers everything for just the mechs.
There's vehicle rules in here too.
Basic, yeah.
Yeah. So this will give you basically what you need. And then for the mechs that you get, you're going to have to download record sheets. So the way record sheets work for classic,
Time era.
What'd you say?
They're done by time eras usually. Yeah,
you go by era or whatever, which we can explain. We'll explain all that when we get into how to make a list down here. What else do we got? So the other thing about Battletech is it's a pretty successful, they've had a bunch of successful video games as well. Yes. So you have the Mech Warrior one-player games, which are like almost like first-person shooters, where you play in a mech. Then you have Mech Warrior Online, which is still that format, but you're playing with other people over the internet. Then you have like Mech Commander, which is more of like that third-person isometric view, right? So there's all kinds of video games. There's a game that's just called Battletech that just recently came out, and it plays extremely close to classic Battletech. So if you play that video game and you already play it, you'll be somewhat familiar with how the board game would work just simply by playing that video game. There's also, it's not really made anymore, but you can still find them. Once again, it used to be a clicks game. So if you see any of the old like Mech Warrior Dark Age clicks, like with the dial, that's what that is. So if you're aware, and I'm sure you could still play it if you wanted to.
Yeah, a lot of those models are pretty close to being in scale too with this game. So if you want to,
they're a little bigger as a general rule of thumb, but they are still usable for the most part. So if you have some of the old clicks models, you can cut them off the clicks base and use them for a standard Battletech model. So if you're wanting to buy the rules or get any of the fluff or any of that stuff, you're going to want to come to this drive-through RPG site. So like we talked about, it's just basically the same thing we've already showed you. When you search on the site, just start by typing Battletech and then finish with the name of the product, or you could literally just click Battletech and hit search, and it'll come
with the box game from Catalyst.
Yeah, it'll come up with all kinds of stuff. You can click and it'll tell you descriptions of what all this stuff is. There's all kinds of these source books for Fluff. There's all your record sheets, all that stuff, and all of it's very reasonably priced. You can see, so like even the full retail price on a lot of stuff is all under $20, and you can get them when they're on sale like this. And if you have questions as to what any of this is, the community is pretty helpful. There's a Facebook page called Battletech International. That's kind of like, that's probably the biggest worldwide Battletech Facebook page.
Yep.
You can go there and ask questions, or you can ask us, email us, whatever. But there's all kinds of stuff. This game has more background and fluff than any other game that I'm aware of. I mean,
I'd say that, yeah.
Would you agree with that, Scott?
Yeah, I would. I would say, universe-wise, I would think of it more as like a legit sci-fi genre, like, Star Trek or something like that. Think of it as that. Don't think of it as like all the history is just what's in these books, because it is pretty expansive.
Yeah, I mean, by the time you figure up, you got the video games. They had a cartoon.
Yeah.
There's just so much to this universe. I mean, I started about a year ago doing nothing. When I read something or read fluff or read a novel, I basically have just been zeroed in on Battletech stuff, and I'm nowhere close to getting through all the material. I mean, I've read novel after novel, source books, all this stuff. It took me more than a month just to read through the Jihad error reports and shit.
Yeah, and another
book, which will give you the overview of a lot of stuff, but then a lot of times you could go back and find specific books which will break down specific events, and you'll have another 40, 50 pages just to read on a specific series of battles or something.
And what he's talking about, like these source books, this Clan Wolf source book, if you wanted to just know a real, like, get the real high points, like the real key parts of information and like the general overview of a faction, if you can find one of these source books for that faction, like here's one for Clan Wolf.
Twycross.
Yep, it'll tell you. And then you have these, like this is like for a specific battle. So this is just for the Battle of Twycross.
Which was part of the clan invasion, which you kind of get an overview that the clans were defeated, but it was very costly, so on and so forth. But if you buy this particular book, you're talking very in-depth read as to how the strategic breakdown happened. It'll even give you breakdown of how the specific fights took place sometimes.
Yeah, this was just one battle. So they of all the battles throughout Battletech history, they literally have like books about, this is just a book about this famous battle.
Several battles on a planet.
Right. So, I mean, dude, it's just so in-depth. You can't even really wrap your brain around it. And that's one of the other reasons we're doing this video, is just so people understand that, I mean, there's just so much to it. You kind of need to know what is what.
You don't have to get that far in, but if you truly get immersed into it, you're welcome to dive that far in. There's that much to go into.
Right. So the other thing, so these are kind of the general types of books there are. There are field manuals, source books, error reports, turning points, field reports, historical reports. Then you have technical readouts, you have record sheets, you have core books. So you have all these books. So we kind of need to explain to people what they are. So you got your core books, which if you just go to the actual Wikipedia page, it'll tell you what these are, the core books. So if you go to the tabletop game sections of the Wikipedia, here's the actual core books. So you have Total Warfare, which is the rule book, basically the core rule book. Then you have Tactical Operations, which adds in a lot of, you see it says rules for expanded gameplay and advanced rules. So if you want all the rules for the basic game, you pretty much need these two things. Then you have the Strategic Operations, which starts like adding in like your capital level assets like spacecraft, jump ships, space warfare rules, just more and more intense. So the more of this you add in, just the more intense your rule set is getting, basically.
It gets big into the economics too. Like if you're wanting to play a campaign where like you and your friends are all mech warriors running a company, you can get into like the very in-depth level of, hey, we have to balance our budget and figure out how we're going to pay for all this.
It's got a lot of campaign stuff in it. Then you have the tech manual, which this is pretty cool. This has rules for customizing your mechs. It has all the technical fluff. So if you want the fluff behind all the technology within the game and the weapon systems, it explains all that. It also has construction rules that you can use for units that are missing that you want to fill in. Or, once again, if you're playing a campaign, these construction rules are nuts.
Yeah.
Like, the best way I can explain it is, say we're playing a campaign, and during the campaign, somebody gets their mech shot out from underneath them, and they don't have a replacement, but they still want to fight and carry on and whatever. Say in the game, you're kind of doing a little role play thing. You go to a settlement, and there's a farm tractor there, and you want to weld some armor plates on a farm tractor and mount a machine gun on it. There are rules to literally build that, and then it'll give you a points value for it. So you can drive around your tractor, your technical that you've made out of a tractor, and you'll have full rules and everything. And you can do all that fully legally with this tech manual.
Or your mech has Big Gun Alpha on its arm and it gets shot off and you don't have a replacement, but you kill this other mech and it's got Big Gun Bravo. So there's rules on how to figure out how to mount this Gun Bravo to where Gun Alpha used to be.
And then there's obviously drawbacks for doing that. So there's like a repair time difference and it costs more money and this and that. But that'll explain all that. Then you have Interstellar Operations, which just ramps the rules up even more. I've never really seen anybody play this. Like, I guess this has a lot of the campaign rules and stuff in it, but this book kind of got pushed aside when this campaign operations book came out, because this campaign operations book basically takes all of the campaign stuff we talked about from all these other books and just condenses it into one book.
And gives you a couple ways to run it. You can run it very in-depth with money. You can run a very simplistic system with points.
Yeah, war chest points and whatever. So these are the core books for classic Battletech. So you really only need this Total Warfare book to try the game out. You really don't need any of this other stuff. If you get really into it, you can use these other games. So then, if you're playing classic, so going back just to remind everybody, if you want to play Alpha Strike, all you need is that Alpha Strike rulebook, and that's it. And then they have a thing called the Alpha Strike Companion, which adds some advanced rules, which is once again on this oops, misspelled Alpha Strike Companion. What is that? What's fighting on there? Is that a Victor and a quick draw? Looks like.
I think so.
So you got this Victor and a quick draw fighting on the cover of this book. This just has the advanced Alpha Strike rules. So once you buy you really only need the rule book, but if you wanted to buy the rule book and then this companion, that's literally all 100% of the Alpha Strike rules. And then to get your unit entries, like for your individual mechs, you go to this Battletech master list and you just search for a mech and they're free on here. Where classic, you have to buy all the individual things. So we'll get to that. So let's say you wanted in classic just to play in 3039. So you type in Battletech record sheets. Oops. Record sheet. And then 3039. Boom. So you have this unabridged version. Click on it. So it's a whopping $6.67. You would download it. You would end up, I got it here. Record sheets. What do we say? 3039 unabridged.
Yep.
So here it is. After you download it, you can go to the index here, and these are all the mechs and vehicles. So it starts with vehicles. Here's all the mechs, aerospace fighters, conventional fighters, all this stuff. So all these units are in this record sheet books. So if you buy that one record sheet book, you get rules for all these units. And the neat thing is, so like, let's say this assassin right here, we'll click on it. It takes you, if you scroll up, this will be a different mech. up here is the Panther. So once you get to this assassin, you can see its serial number here. It's the ASN 21, and it has its stats. If you scroll down, there'll be a different assassin. This is the ASN 101. So and it's a different design. So this design may have come out in a different year, or it may be that a different faction is using the same chassis but put different weapons on. So these different serial numbers are going to have different rules determined by which one it is. So now we're into the Cicada. So there's only 2 versions of the Assassin in 3039. But what I'm getting at is you've seen that table of contents, like there's a significant amount of units just in this one book, but you also have to take into consideration that each of those units might have multiple variants on top of it. So that you're going to have tons of different things to go through just in this one book. Then the other nice thing about it, they always want you to be able to use your models for the most part. So say you have, I don't know, what's one that gets updated a lot here?
The Centurion.
Where's it at? Yep, Centurion. So this Centurion, I clicked the Vindicator. Oh, well, we don't have to be on it. So anyway, the Centurion, it's in this book, but it's also going to be in like 3050 and 3085 and whatever. So you can play your one model, but if you want to play a late timeline, you can basically find another variant and another timeline to still use that same model or convert another model if you
the
really
old mechs usually get updated versions with updated weapons as time goes on.
Right. And they're going to for the most part, look the same. They're just going to have a different rule section layout in here. So that's something to keep in mind. The other types of books are basically everything that's not a record sheet or a core book is fluff. So if you only want rules, you only need these record sheet books and core books, which I don't even have all the core books in here. Oops. These are the ones I just happen to have on my computer. I own the hard copies, but these are just the ones I have the digital copies for. But if you're just wanting rules for Classic, that's all you need for rules. Everything else is basically fluff. So your field manuals, your source books, your error reports, your turning point books, your field report books, your historical report books, and your technical readout books are all just fluff. You can't play the game. There's really no rules in there. The technical readouts are the most confusing for people because they have pseudo rules. They're not real rules. They don't have the full rules where you can play it, but it gives you a general idea. The closest thing I can say that the technical readout books are, once again, if you're familiar with Horus Heresy, it's basically like the fluff. It's the difference between the black book and the red book. Yep. Your red book would be your record sheets, and your black book that has all the fluff and stuff would be the technical readout. The main difference is in Heresy, the black books still have the rules. In Battletech, the technical readout book doesn't have the full rules. It just has like the very basic.
It gives you the stats, not the sheet. You could take a generic character like record sheet and fill it.
But it doesn't have all the variants. It just has the prime original variant, and it's you can't really play the game with it. You don't want it. You definitely want the record sheets for the rules. So that's kind of what all those different books are. So most of the stuff is just fluff books. So I've showed you where we go to drive-through RPG to buy all this stuff, which I don't know if anybody's caught on, but the company who actually makes this game is called Catalyst Game Labs. I'll just be bluntly honest. Their website's awful.
Yes.
You can't find anything to buy it. Sometimes I can't even, I'll go and do a search, and it's like they don't even have their own product or whatever. This drive-through RPG has always had everything that I've ever wanted or tried to buy. They've had where I can't even find half the stuff on Catalyst. So even though Catalyst makes the rules and makes all the fluff, I don't ever go there to buy anything.
Physical-wise, you're better off going to Amazon. And as far as anything goes from that, that's the only thing really worthwhile is the box game, the Battletech box game, because you get your basic rules.
Right, which we're going to get to that further down. But basically, if you want to buy any of these digital rules things, just come to this drive-through RPG site. That's why we brought it up. That you can see Catalyst isn't even in any of these links because they're pretty useless, to be honest. Even though they own the license, just go here. And then the other good source of fluff are the novels. So the way I get the novels is I just go to Amazon and I just buy the Kindle edition of the novels and just do, read through the books. I think there's only one Battletech book that's the unabridged full audiobook version, and that's that Embers of War book. Is that?
Yes.
Yeah,
that's exactly right. All the old ones you're gonna get were recorded by Defiance Audio back in the 80s, 90s, early 90s, and those are all abridged, and they've not aged well, I would say.
Yeah, so I wouldn't even piss around with them. I don't really like them. I would just read the actual books.
Yeah. Embers of War, that audiobook is fantastic, and you don't really have to know a lot about the Battletech history and lore just to dive in and enjoy that. And that was recorded very, very recently. It's like 10 hours of audio in very high quality audio drama style. So I would recommend picking that up, but that would be the only one.
Yeah, go ahead. Give me a Coke Zero, Chris. Chris is gonna go get his drinks. But yeah, so Scott's exactly right. So if you don't have time to actually read a novel and you're just like you're trying to decide like if you want to get into this universe, but you want to check out a novel and you like audiobooks, you can pick up Embers of War. I don't think it was very much money. I think it's like $15, right, Scott?
Yep.
I think it's $15 for the full unabridged, like 10, 11 hour long book. You can listen to it and see if you like it. And then you can obviously also check out this Lore Warrior guy if you like more audio style content.
He does reviews of the Mech Warrior Online mechs like as they release them. If you watch those reviews, yeah, most of it is about the video game, but he'll talk about the strengths and drawbacks of those mechs in like game terms, and it's pretty accurate how they play on the tabletop as well. So that might be a good way to get some feedback for them also.
Yeah, that Zeus that we were showing you guys earlier, if you look right here, here's the Lore Warrior Online. It's only 4 minutes, 17 seconds long. You can click this and you can listen to the fluff, the basic fluff about the Zeus. So that's basically where you get all the rules, what the different types of books are and all that for Classic and Alpha Strike. Before we move on to where you get your models, do you have anything to add to that, Scott?
Nope. That's about it. You can get the models. Oh, that's what we're about to talk about.
Yeah,
okay,
that's what we're going to talk about.
All right.
Michael, being the uninitiated person, if you're still listening to this and not zoned out, do you have any questions on where to get the rule books or like what the rules are actually in and all that?
Not really. I guess it's knowing which rules to find where. It's kind of a little bit shaky, but I understand where to get the books and books themselves.
I get that, and I bet Ryan can help me out here. If you go to Master Unit List and you click on we're
going to show how to build a list later.
Okay, good. That'll help. You'll know by the end of that.
Yeah. Sure. So where to get the models? So Catalyst Games Labs, Topps owns the license. Catalyst Games Labs rents the license and prints the books. But once again, they're not a miniatures company. So what they did, there's this company called Ironwind Metals. They're a legit mom and pop place. When I say mom and pop, that's pretty accurate. They're over next to Cincinnati, Ohio. This is their webpage here. So if you go to when you actually go to their website, this is their actual main page. This will come up. If this is their online store, you click on here. They're the ones that make the official Battletech model. So back in the day when FASA owned it, Raul Partha used to make the models. So when Ironwind got the license from Catalyst, they also got the license to reproduce a lot of the old Raul Partha sculpts. So a lot of people you will hear say that, the Battletech models are awful, because they'll just do a quick Google search or whatever, and they'll get some old fucking trebuchet or something that looks like total trash. The old 1989 Raul Partha sculpts, whatever. Yes, you can still buy that. It's on here. We can do a search for trebuchet, and you can buy that if you want to. There's nothing stopping you. There are other ways to get nicer models, which we're going to get into. But anyway, if you go to Ironwind Metals right here, the very first category here is Battletech, because that's the main thing they sell. They sell all these other games. This is their bread and butter, though. So if you click Battletech, it has all these categories. You got new releases, individual hex bases, mech packs, which are like sets where you get more than one mech, aircraft mechs, online exclusives. This is a big category that you also need to be aware of. Fighters, which are planes, industrial mechs, vehicles.
The online exclusives could only be got through the website or if you go to a convention where they happen to be.
Right. So you're not going to be able just to go to a store and buy these online exclusives. And just real quick, just to click this, when you open this, you can see you just get a lot more categories. So if what's weird about it, I don't know why they have it set up this way. It just is the way it is. If you click mechs, you're only going to get the mechs that aren't online exclusive mechs. So if you want to see all the mechs, you're going to have to look at the mechs here. And you're also going to have to click online exclusive and click mechs again, wherever they're at. You see them? Yeah, mechs right here. So looking at those two places, you'll see all the mechs. So let's look at mechs real quick. So these are just the generic non-exclusive mechs. So they'll come up. We're looking at all the mechs right now. You'll see it'll have your part number, the name, and the price, and you can just buy now, add it to a cart, whatever. You can also go over here and search for a mech. So that Zeus, we'll just keep referencing it because that's what I showed you the sheet for. You click the Zeus, and there's a couple different Zeus models here. And they also sell individual bits, which is nice. So if you look here, this has the Zeus gun arm. So if you want to know which gun arm that is, if you look at this part number, see it's the 20-18 or 20-814 GNA, which is gun arm. It's the gun arm from this model because this model shares the same part number. So when you see something like this, if it doesn't have a picture, just look at the part number. You can even just research the part number here, and the mech will usually come up, and you can just look at the picture here and see what the part's going to look like. So if you look, you can buy the individual parts basically for this model. So if you're doing any converting or bit swapping or whatever, this is a pretty good source of bits as well as models. So you can see like a lot of the older models or these Ironwind models, like this is kind of an older one. Doesn't look great. Let's be honest. I mean, it's not horrendously bad, but it's not great.
Yeah.
If we go back like this, some of these, is it this one or the other one? Like this looks much better. This is a newer sculpt. So, and you can still, even though it's supposed to represent like a certain one or whatever, you can still use it sometimes or convert it to be what you want. So you can look through here. This is the company that once again makes essentially the official miniatures for Battletech. So if you want the official, and these are all pewter miniature, or not pewter, white metal. Sorry, we don't do pewter anymore. But it's all right here. This is also where you're going to get the majority of your vehicles, infantry, things that aren't mechs. You're going to get those here. So some other sources you can get stuff from. So those video games we were talking about earlier. What people have done now that 3D printing is a thing, they've went in and they've captured those 3D files from the video game and basically 3D print them. And once they 3D print a master, they then make molds from the master and then either resin or white metal make copies, and you can get better sculpts. So we'll type in Mech Warrior. This is on eBay, obviously. Online, we'll do Zeus again. Oops, I misspelled Zeus. Good thing it knows I'm a dummy. So we'll click on this bad boy here. So this should be from a guy called Insane Kangaroo. Let's see, where's the seller name? Am I missing it?
Right.
Yep, right here. Insane Kangaroo. This is a very nice Australian gentleman. I forget his first name. He's got a Facebook page as well. If you go to Facebook and look up Insane Kangaroo Mech Works, he's got a Facebook page, but he sells all of his stuff on eBay. So if you look here, This is, in my opinion, a much nicer sculpt. It's hard to tell because it's unpainted or whatever, but the detail's really nice. And typically, his mechs come, if this mech had multiple variants, it'll come with variant parts. And sometimes they'll actually include an extra set of legs, multiple legs, so you can get different poses out of the model. They're still metal, and because they're coming from Australia, depending on where you live, like if you live in the US, shipping can be a little high. So if you're going to buy from this Insane Kangaroo guy, make sure you get a list, like either yourself order a bunch or get your friends to order with you. Once you hit about $30, $40 shipping, it's not going to go any higher than that, regardless of the amount of mechs you buy for the most part, unless you're buying like hundreds, which I don't know why you would. But if you're buying like between 4 and 20 mechs, the shipping's going to basically be 30 to 40 bucks. So obviously the more you buy, the less, shipping you're technically paying per model. But what this guy's doing is taking those MechWarrior Online mechs and 3D printing them and then making a mold and then making cool models out of it. And that's Insane Kangaroo.
He's a very popular guy in the community too.
Yeah, he used to be on this site called Camo Specs, which we're going to get to in a minute. But anyway, so this is a good source of mechs. And if we just click Insane Kangaroo here and click visit his store, should be right here, items for sale, you're going to see he's got all kinds of these MechWarrior Online mechs. Like here's a Mad Cat, Phoenix Hawk. Here's an old style Marauder. There's probably a new one. There's a King Crab, a Raven. And all these, I would say 99% of the time, these are going to be better, in my opinion, than the Iron Wind ones. That being said, they don't make all the mechs because he's only making the mechs that are available in the video game, and there's like 800 mechs in Battletech.
The video game's only up to like the 30, 62, 65, something like that title.
Right. And to be fair, Iron Wind models, so a lot of these mechs that don't look great on here, a lot of the times it's just because they're older and there's so many mechs in Battletech, they don't go back a lot of the time and do resculpts.
Sometimes they get updated, but not too often.
Right. But just to give people an example, like this is a newer model. There's only one of this. This came out, usually it has the date. This is a 2017 model. That's a nice looking model. Like that looks just as good as any of the MechWarrior Online sculpts, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So Iron Wind, it's not that Iron Wind shit. It's just that Iron Wind's been around forever, and they're using sculpts. Some of the sculpts are from the 80s. Some of the sculpts, as you can see, are from 2017. So it's kind of a crapshoot. Some mechs, like, I don't know, a Thunderbolt, you're going to find like 5 different variants. One's going to be the old, shitty one.
One's going to be the one from Faza, when Faza had a license borrowed from...
We're going to get to the Unseen in a minute. But
the Unseen stuff. And then you're going to get the new resculpt after they lost the rights to that.
Right.
Which looked terrible.
So don't sleep on Iron Wind. Don't just go, well, Ryan said don't ever...
Yes.
I'm not saying that. There are some mechs that they make.
If you need a mech that is played in the later timelines, like Dark Age eras, 31, 45, whatever, if you have figured all this out and you're looking for a mech that is played in a later timeline that isn't made in that MechWarrior Online sort of aesthetic, look on Iron Wind, because like some of the more recent ones look fantastic. Like the fucking Tomahawk 2, dope as fuck.
Yep. Same thing with this Giuliano here. I think this is a beautiful mech. And there are like some exceptions. Like we were talking the other day, I think that this Black Knight model that they have, I think this particular model here arguably looks better than the MechWarrior Online one. So
yep. All their tanks and shit too, and aircraft, that's all, a very high standard, I think, just as a general rule. Their tanks look good, the infantry is serviceable, all that stuff.
Well, the infantry's so small. So, like, here's an idea.
It's kind of...
They're little vehicles. I think these look really rad. These are called a Schism. These are a late timeline, Dark Age style vehicle. Here's some of the battle armors. They're really tiny. This thing's like... It looks like it's on the normal size heck base, but it's not. Like, this thing would probably be like the size of a penny.
Uh-huh.
If you laid it down like a penny.
They just released one called the Black Wolf Battle Armor that's pretty big and has good detail. That thing looks fucking awesome.
It's right here. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't play it because it's not my faction, but
yeah,
it looks pretty neat.
So once again, this is Ironwind. So they do make good stuff. It's just they're still making stuff out of white metal, which is a little bit of a limited material. And they just recently started doing CAD design stuff. A lot of the other older stuff was hand sculpts, and a lot of the sculpts are old Ralpartha sculpts. But don't sleep on them. So, like, if you want to play a quick draw, look on here. Look on Insane Kangaroo. Look at these other places we're going to tell you about, and just pick the one you like. There's going to be
a stretch of 34 years. There's been a lot of different sculptors that have made these models and stuff too.
Right. So another good place that we'll look at, I'm going to go ahead and close Insane Kangaroo so we don't have a million tabs, is Warhanza. If you go to this Warhanza Miniatures.
Fucking ordered something from here today.
Yeah.
I've actually ordered something from all of these websites we're looking at today because, well, I'm not very responsible fiscally. So
if you go to this where it says RoboMex 1/285th, which is 6mm scale, all of these sculpts here, almost all these sculpts here, if you scroll through here, these are going to be basically the same MechWarrior Online ones that we just showed you on Insane Kangaroo. The difference is these are in resin, so you don't have to deal with metal. So if you don't like dealing with metal, this is one of the go-tos. The drawback to this versus Insane Kangaroo, when you buy an Insane Kangaroo mech, it usually comes with a ton of extra bits to build it into multiple variants or to convert, or extra legs for different poses, things like that. When you buy from this guy, you typically just get exactly what's pictured. You're not going to get extra pieces. Their price is about the same. These guys are 14. I would think the Insane Kangaroo ones.
And the names don't match. You have to figure out what it is.
Yes. So like this Hellpaw, because of, I guess he doesn't want to cross the IP gods or whatever, this is really a Hell spawn. So you kind of need to know what you're looking at. I did personally make a conversion chart because I do know what I'm looking at. So I went through, like, this is a Bushwhacker. This is a Annihilator. This is a Marauder 2C.
Supernova.
No. Oh, that's a Nova Cat.
Oh, how dare you!
I got him.
Oh, fuck. Jesus.
But anyway, you can see.
Damn Nova Cat can. They suck.
Yeah, this is your Supernova, by the way.
There we go.
So anyway, you can see he's got several pages. He has a wider selection than Insane Kangaroo. And like I says, his stuff is resin, so it's lighter weight. If you drop it, it's not going to shatter into 10 trillion pieces. It also doesn't chip as easy. And it's harder to ding up or whatever. You're not going to get as many variants, though, and it takes longer. If you order from Insane Kangaroo, you're likely to get it sooner than you would from this guy. The only other drawback to these, it's not bad. Every once in a while, the quality isn't great. You'll get some mold slips, or you'll get some like shitty, like where maybe the mold needs refreshed or whatever, and you'll have some like kind of crappy areas. They're not terribly expensive, and you are buying basically a copy of a copy of a copy, because it's a 3D print that they're then copying. But they're really not bad. They're definitely serviceable, but just throwing that out there. I feel like overall, Insane Kangaroo's quality is probably slightly better. Yeah. But it's also it's a much harder material to work with, in my opinion. I think metal is harder to work with than this resin.
Something that people need to know about this website is Warlike Tribes, like it'll say on the side that he changed the name on everything because of the IP thing. Warlike Tribes are your clan mechs, and then the other thing, the Terra Promessa, that's your Intersphere shit. So.
Yeah, so you can search by that as well. But anyway, like I said, I did make a conversion chart. If somebody really wants to get into Battletech and they want to buy from here, they don't know what the hell they're looking at, let me know and I can get you that conversion chart. I just typed it up in super high-tech Microsoft Notepad, I believe. So
he has been doing a little bit better about including variant options as well. I've gotten some more recently that had variant options. So
okay, cool. But anyway, this is definitely a site you can get some mechs from. We'll go ahead and close it out, and then we'll look at. Oh no! we were going into the infinite hole again. The last one that I want to look at, well, not second to last one, is the Strato Miniatures. So this place, what's crazy about this place, so they're not, all these designs that this guy's done are his own designs. They're not like taken from a video game or anything like that. That being said, they're basically like his take on classic mech designs. So it's like so for example, this mech, it's called a Samurai. This is just a Hatamoto Chi. Like if I go to Iron Wind Metals, did I close Iron Wind? Hatamoto Chi model right here. This mech.
So you're not presenting anymore. You're not sharing.
Oh, when did that go away?
I think you clicked your camera off whenever you were trying to.
Oh, oops. Screen share. It says stop sharing. Is it not sharing?
No, it is definitely not sharing.
Oh. We have to. Can we edit this? What's going on?
Nope. Did
Oh
you
no.
close the window, or did you minimize the screen, or did you open a different window?
No. It says sharing. It says you are screen sharing and presenting to everyone.
Yeah, your screen sharing went away.
Well, while we're waiting, folks, I got one recommendation. I'm not sure that we're going to mention or we intended on mentioning, but I bought from him too because he has a Black Friday sale going on. It's a Steel Warrior Studios. So he's friends with the Stratos Mini guys, and he sells his stuff as well as MWO sculpts, and also as well as what is it? He sells some vehicles as well. Am I sharing now?
Yeah, well, you're just presenting.
Okay, well, I will go ahead and go to his website. It's Steel Warrior Studios.
You're not sharing your screen. It's just your face.
Okay.
Is mine showing up now?
No, Ryan.
God damn it! What did it do? We were doing so well.
But I don't know how to share my screen. Oh, there we go. Hold on. Uh-oh.
Just hit the new tab. Just go to the new tab.
Okay. There, did they go away?
Yeah, it's because you're screen sharing Chrome, and then your tab was open to Google Hangouts. So just go to screen share, and then just go to the new tab at the top right.
Okay. So screen share. New tab. This.
Yeah, you're not screen sharing now. You got to start screen sharing.
So go to the screen share box, click on that. Now what?
Start screen sharing.
If I do it, is it going to do that crazy thing again?
Yeah, you'll just have to move over to the new tab.
Okay, so click on this.
There you go.
Okay, awesome. So, Jesus Christ. Steel Warrior.
Now that we got Scott working, I'll just tell Scott where to go and he can go.
Yeah, just tell me what to do. God, yes. Warrior Studios. So, this is I'll get to the Stratos Mini stuff as well. I can go there and show you guys what's up with that. But if you go here, Steel Warrior Studios, these guys are friends. So he has some of his stuff on here as well. As you can see, like the Bull Shark. This is very close to a Marauder. Through Steel Warrior, it's sold out right now. But I think if you order it through Stratos, yeah, they have them. That's a Marauder. That's like a classic take on a Marauder. It's not the same as the Mech Warrior Online one, but it looks very, it's beautiful. It looks
cool model,
fantastic. Yeah. Very quality. Here he's got a Warhammer or a Kriegshammer for him, but this is like a classic version of a Warhammer. That's one of the better looking takes on that model I've ever seen. He also has some stuff that he's done just kind of, here you're going to see he did the name things with these as well, where he just changed the name so you don't get in trouble with the IP gods or whatever. But these are MechWarrior Online sculpts. I don't know specifically.
They're not MechWarrior Online sculpts. All these are their individual own sculpts.
Okay. So they represent a model in BattleTech.
Here, put your cursor over one, and I'll tell you what it is.
So like a
quote. That's a longbow. The one next to it's a Vulcan.
Yeah.
That next one's a Thug. The next one, Banderstach.
Yeah.
Things like that.
So things like that. And then down here you can find tanks as well. So like this Mjolnir support tank, that's a Shrek PPC. It's got 3 PPCs sticking off of it. This is an Ontos, in game terms, it calls it the Claymore. This is a Demolisher. You click on this guy, and he has different configurations for these as well. What examples, if you want to see what something's going to look like, if you hit the scroll bar and you pick a different variant, like say I want the frontal assault one, it'll pop up and show you. And if it doesn't, there's photo examples down here as well. So he has Black Friday sale going on. I think his advertisement is anything over $30. If you type in the discount code TankVember, I would do it soon. You can pick up these mechs for a little bit cheaper. I think it's like 25% off. So I'll go to Stratos and kind of show you guys. Strato Mini. What the fuck? Sorry. Yeah, I'm a frequent flyer here. I have limited self-control when it comes to this shit. Yeah, like you can see, we looked at these variants right here on his other website, but these are his takes on essentially the classic designs if he could do it. And he's done a fantastic job. They sell a lot of really cool things. So like that's a Shadowhawk, Nightbird, pretty easy. They sell all this stuff in 2 different scales, so you can buy it in 15 millimeter as well. If you want to kind of do what me and Ryan are doing and upscale your games, you could do that. And at 15 mil, it'd probably be a little more manageable than what we plan. But so these are his original sculpts. These don't necessarily represent anything specifically in the BattleTech universe, but these are very easy to use as stand-ins. Like this Hover Scout is a Savannah Master. You can make that a Savannah Master very easily. You can make these short-range and long-range missile carriers, LRM carriers, pretty easily. This represents gosh, Chris said the name today. It's like a Skadai or something. It's a clan VTOL. VTOLs are like helicopters in BattleTech. So you got your Hachimoto, all that stuff. And another cool thing I just noticed, I'll show you some of the tanks too. Yeah, just more stuff. So Tin Man, this makes a great Hatchet Man. That's a pretty cool mech. You get to hit someone with a fucking giant depleted uranium melee weapon. So here's his tanks. Like I said, these don't represent anything specifically, but they're really great quality. And if you find something rules like a Rommel, let's say a Rommel with a Gauss rifle, that's a perfect stand-in for that right there. Big ass cannon, it's a tank, you can use it.
Yeah, and you can even take some of those Iron Wind bits that we showed earlier. Yeah. You can go through their bit section and find like SRM launchers or whatever you wanted and add to those tanks and build your own like Franken model to represent stuff.
Yep, and like you can see here, he also is doing a black month sale. So instead of Black Friday, it's the whole month and it's 20% off everything that's a 6 millimeter range. So, if you're looking to get in to this, it's
or like me a week and a half ago.
Yep. Or
coming out soon.
Yeah.
New hex scale map boards coming out in neoprene, and then he's got like these terrain packs that you just buy and you slap the hexes down across your map to add trees and stuff.
Yeah,
kind of a neat idea that he's coming out with for classic BattleTech with hexes.
Yep. So like we said, you don't have to play with hexes, but if you want to play with hexes, this is much easier to facilitate than buying like, 6 to 10 millimeter terrain and painting it and having to lug it around and stuff. Or if you're just more into board games than you are so much like actual miniature war games, this is easy. You just, buy this mat and throw these little doodads on there, and bam, you got terrain, you got a board, and you can play. So,
yep. So
all right.
the next place I was going to show was your Hardware Studios guy, Scott's
Okay.
buddy.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah, the dropship.
Oh man, I really have gone nuts with this, and pretty soon I'll show some hobby progress revolved around their product and what I've done with it and what my take was it on. But
grab that beautiful dropship and put it on camera.
Oh,
You went to the wrong thing, Scott.
I'm sorry. I fucking.
You got to type in Hardware Studios miniatures.
Okay. Hardware. Sorry. Hardware Studios mini terrain.
Yep. There you go.
There you go. That's it. Yeah, sure. Yep. Okay. So I will. If you go to our Facebook page, you can see examples of the Union dropship I painted up from this. But go here. You can either get units or terrain. We'll focus on the terrain for now, because that's my favorite thing that he sells. These are little city blocks in 6 millimeters. So you can buy these city blocks and then buy the buildings to go on them. And if you put them on, say, I put them on a Frontline Gaming asphalt map, boom, you have city blocks. Everything that is in between them is roads, and you can play that way. It's also got some terrain layers. All this is 3D printed. These buildings here, this is a really nice building. If I click on it, it'll show me an example of what it looks like assembled and painted up at the bottom of the page. Essentially, these are 2-piece buildings. It comes, you can just pop the lid off and look inside of it and, fuck around with it. But the windows come hollowed out. So what I did was I bought these little, sort of translucent skull folders, and I cut them to fit the windows. You take this lid off here and you just slide them in there, and then you can put the lid back on, and bam, you got windows. You want to put LEDs in there. We've talked on the past few episodes about some remote controlled LEDs. You just throw one of those LEDs in there, turn it off, put the lid back on, put this on one of those city block things, bang. You have a fully set up LED table and all that shit, and it looks pretty cool. But he sells a pretty wide variety of terrain, as far as this goes. Most of it is centered around urban stuff. You can see here, all this is printed by him, I think, on site. These are also his designs here, like some of the Star Wars inspired stuff. That is, I think, for X-Wing, but it's 6 millimeter scale, so it works for our game too. And this comes from Shapeways. I don't know if there's any real reason to know that, what difference is. Maybe it's a shipping time thing, but everything I've ordered from them has been incredibly high quality. And he also has done some other pretty neat little things in the realms of drop ships. So 6 millimeter drop ships are, if you want to, I have it just because it's fun and I wanted one. I've been a fan of it and it's iconic, but you can look right here and see that he prints out these little drop ships that come in 6 millimeter scale. This one's fucking huge. That's why it's expensive, because it's bigger than about the size of an NBA regulation basketball.
Yeah, I think it's a little over 12 inches in diameter. It's basically round. So.
They did the same name thing here. So this monitor looks an awful lot like a Union. This Jeopard looks like a Leopard drop ship. That is something else. I'm not sure which one that is. This Merrimack looks a lot like a Confederate. And there's some other stuff here. If you're into Star Wars or whatever, he's printed out some tanks. I didn't even know he had those. So, same thing. This is the same skill. Or the same scale. So if you find something that very closely represents what you're going to play, you can buy it on here.
Yes, with ultra trains, you can build a train set on your city board.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. You could do that. You could do that. One more place I'll show, and then I'll shut up. Is going to be Gamecraft Miniatures, and this dude, he makes like a shitload of terrain in every scale for every game. I know a lot of this is terrain focused. Now, people probably don't care as much about this as they do about the other stuff, but you know, he prints out. Some of it is MDF, some of it is cast, whatever. But I order a lot of shit from him. It's really good. And last place I'll show you real quick.
You just said that.
What?
Nothing.
Yeah, I know.
Hard time.
Can't help it. Yeah. Can't help it, man. Like I can at least vouch for these companies because I bought shit from every one of them, and I know they're all really quality. Typically, these are like independently ran businesses, so it's kind of cool to support that. But this is one that's called Demonscape, and they make terrain for just miniature games in general. But this is their 6mm line, and you can see, you know, this is all really nice stuff as well. Very fairly priced. This does come from Europe, so it's going to take a little bit to get here, but hey, it is what it is.
I'm going to need a lot of those desert buildings for my Arcab Legion.
There you go. Yeah, that's right. I know.
So the other places, like for actual models, if you own a 3D printer, go to Thingiverse, Scott.
Okay.
Whenever we always talk about 3D printing being the future, this is what kind of shit we're talking about.
Yes.
Just go ahead and do a search for Battletech. So you go here, you can print. If you own your own 3D printer, you can take these files. Like those are Manticore tanks right there. There's a Striker missile wheeled vehicle. It's a Davian thing. So you can go through there, and there's an LRM carrier. There's all kinds of stuff there.
Teleport.
You can, if you have a 3D printer, you can download these files and just, if you like these models, like these sculpts, you can just print them off. So this is another good way to get models. And if Scott were to scroll down through here, almost all of the Mech Warrior Online mechs are on here where you can download and print them.
So you may have to search yourself. Yeah.
What'd you say?
You can do it yourself. Like you literally don't even have to go through a third party at this stage.
Yep.
And this website, these files are printable in any scale. So if you want to do the fucking insane shit that we're doing and print out these giant mechs and play with them in 28mm, here you go. You know, you have the ability to do that.
Yep. So this is a good spot, like we said. So you can find stuff on here. I would search. So like right there's a Cougar. That's a Mech Warrior Online. They've just captured the files from that. So if you like that model, you can just print it from here. Yep. So you can search on here for Battletech or search on here for Mech Warrior. Either way, you're going to get the models. So
they actually put them inside of a group. So those are just searching Battletech isn't going to get you a lot because they usually stay away from naming it like that. So if you pick on one of those Mech Online guys, like click any of those.
So him?
Yeah, it'll work. Or you click the guy creating it.
Now what do I do? Go to collections?
Go back because you clicked on the author. You didn't click on the mech.
Okay.
So click on the mech, and you'll see that everything's grouped. So if you scroll down, so you'll see part of the go back up, back up a little bit more, back up. All right, you see the tab for Battletech.
Yes.
Yeah.
Click on this.
Yeah. We're trying to find that's part of those groups because there's actual groups on here. Like these were like based in movies. So on that Nova, I guess. I'll find a group here. So there's a Battletech group that I found. And it's, you scroll down. And then the left side where it says groups. Looking for. Scroll down. The other one had, but there wasn't in one in Battletech. It's up to the community to start throwing groups.
Yeah.
So,
At the end of the day,
this was posted a day ago, so it hasn't made it to the group yet. It looks like.
Yeah.
But you can find shit on here, basically.
Yes.
It's all 3D printing stuff. So you can come here and look around. The other one that's like this, if you want the bigger models, is Gambody, which it's 3D printing, but it's not for 6 mil. It's basically exclusively for 15 millimeter and 28 millimeter, which is 1/100 scale and 1/60th scale. Here, if you search Mech Warrior, is what you want to search on Gambody. This is the giant size mechs.
Yep. Working on one of these right now. So, oh fuck.
Boom, Black Friday.
I need that urban mech.
But so this is all 3D printing stuff.
That gun pack for that urban mech. I need that urban mech and that gun pack so I can make my K9.
So Scott jumped the gun. I was actually going to do a terrain section. He's already got us into terrain. So a couple other good terrain sources. There's a company called Sally Forth Miniatures, and it's spelled SALLY and then the number 4 and then TH. Sally Forth. Yeah, MDF.
MDF?
Yep,
Okay.
so it popped up. There you go. Search that.
Is that them?
That right there. Yep. Laser cut MDF. Let's see. Should be a little. There should be a. Is it not loading?
No, it's up.
Hang on. Scroll down there. There should be like a 6 millimeter or 10 millimeter terrain or whatever. Somewhere.
Okay.
There.
Somewhere along the sides here, there's a link. I'm
Yeah.
This.
Type in 6 millimeter. Anyway, I think you clicked on something weird. I don't know. Can you click on their homepage? Like where you just go back to their home? Maybe click their little logo.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. But anyway, there's a thing you can find it on here. We're not going to waste a bunch of time on it, but they have some really cool building sets for 6 mil. I'm actually going to order some. They're actually pre-painted too, like the MDF. It kind of goes together like those Gundam models where you get the different sprues that are the different colors, and when you put them together, they layer, and they're like quote unquote pre-painted. That's how some of their MDF stuff.
Foreground does the same thing for 28 mil. Now.
Right, but these guys have some really cool 6 millimeter urban buildings. Another good place is Brigade Models. If you want to go there for terrain. Yep. And they have 6 millimeter and 10 millimeter terrain. You can go right over there in the side. It says 6 millimeter sci-fi. And then if you look at their little drop down, there's like desert domes, research base, moon base, underground structures, and they have all kinds of little tanks and hovercraft too. That's all like if you clicked on those Indonesian or Mercs or anything like that.
Desert
like
buildings.
You can scroll down, you can see there's little buildings and stuff. And this is all in resin. So this is another good place to get terrain and stuff from.
Nice.
Lastly, there's a game called Drop Zone Commander. I'm sure most of you have heard of Drop Zone Commander. Most of the Drop Zone Commander terrain will work for Battletech. So if you have trouble finding Battletech terrain, just do a Google search for Drop Zone Commander terrain and click images. On your Google search, just click images and you'll see a lot of terrain pictures for this game. Almost all of this stuff, right? The third one over where it says 10 millimeter scale, that is the Sally Forth buildings, the ones I was just talking about.
Mm-hmm.
That's all that's the Sally Forth set that I'm going to buy for us.
Also, this is a really cool, cheap option. These little cardboard buildings and cardboard road tiles. I think it's like $40, and it gives you a play area of like 4x4. So, you know, that's that's big enough. You know, you can definitely get to playing with that. You know, if you're playing like 15K or something.
Yep. So that you can basically just look at drop zone commander terrain. That'll work. And then lastly is woodland scenics. They make a lot of like
Yeah.
stuff and like trees, bushes, shrubs, anything like that. Most people who know anything about, you know, miniatures wargaming or terrain sets will know about woodland scenics.
Facebook group too, or?
What,
This will be a brand that's carried at just about every like train store or anything like that.
So
they have.
these people, if you want to make little trees or anything like that, you basically just get stuff from them.
There's a good Facebook group out there too called 6mm Sci-Fi Gaming.
Okay.
That I'm in. The place where Scott showed you the big drop ship that he got, Hardware Studios, they advertised on there before they got their website up and running. It was just an individual guy who was selling some individual things off that site first. There's a couple guys in there who are community driven, who've made their own special city battle mats with hex grids on them and all kinds of stuff. You can find a lot of good community driven stuff that people will create, occasionally put up for sale or reference where they got.
Yeah. So anyway, woodland scenics, you can basically build your own terrain or order pre-built, whatever, but they're good for any type of like geological, natural type stuff that's not just buildings, like trees, hills, shrubs, anything like that. You can get it from these guys. And then lastly, if you want to play hexes, if you're really into hexes and you don't just want to play on a flat mat, what's crazy is there's this old board game put out by Milton Bradley called Heroscape. So Scott, do a Google search for Heroscape tiles. Heroscape is one word. And just do hit images. You can find these on eBay. This isn't something made anymore. So these little tiles, go to that second row all the way to the right, and you'll see where somebody's done like a setup there.
This one?
Yep, any of those. You can click on it. These hexes are only slightly larger than your standard Battletech hex, but they come in different colors that represent like thick forest or light forest or whatever, and they're just plastic, so you can repaint them too or put flock on them or whatever. And if you're going to play hexes and you want 3D terrain, this is the easiest way to do it. And it's pretty funny. If you type in Heroscape tiles Battletech and click images, you'll find tons of people that have built pretty elaborate just put in Battletech after that, Scott. So you can, let's see, there's some where they've literally reflocked them. They reflock the tiles and like make them look really legit.
Right here.
Yeah, so those have been repainted with some flock and stuff on them, and they're playing on a hex mat, but with 3D stuff. So I'm still not a fan. I would still rather just play hexless. That being said, like if you want to play hexes, that's still a good way to do it, and you can just stick to the traditional rules, and it does look better than just playing on flat hex mat. So now we were going to get to online resources, like things that are just good resources for Battletech. So go to Sarna, Scott.
Okay.
Just Google Battletech Sarna. The actual website is sarna.net. So this is basically the Wikipedia page for Battletech. All the generic infos here, they don't put rules up because they don't want just to release the rules for free. But they if you scroll down a little bit, Scott. So you can basically in the little search box over there, you went too far.
Sorry.
See the little search box?
Yeah.
Search for that Zeus again, because we keep going back to the Zeus. You click on that. So this will give you a brief rundown, description of the Zeus and all that. And then if he scrolls down a little further.
Hey, look what it is for all you old school listeners. The Battletech pods.
Yeah, that's the video game pods that used to have Virtual World. If you scroll down there, it'll give you weapons and equipment. And you'll get to a section called variants, and it'll see the variants there. if you read that, it kind of gives you a loose idea of what the mech's laid out. You don't get the rules, but once you get fairly comfortable with the game, you'll be able to basically read these and get a quick idea of what the mech is armed with and what it might be capable of. And then when you do, you can just look at that little serial code, the ZEU-6T or whatever, and then you can I'll show you how that works in a minute. So this is just a good site. Keep this tab up, Scott, for this.
Okay.
We'll redo this when we build a list. But anyway, this is a really good online resource. There's lots of fluff here. There's a go back to the homepage.
Like one thing real quick, one thing he's saying, there's lots of fluff here, so you can kind of also research what variant fits your faction the best and in what period as well, because it has little snippets here. All right, homepage.
Yep, go back to the homepage of this.
Oh my God. Okay.
Go to, there should be a thing called the Battle Mech portal. If you scroll down, it'll be
Battle Mechs portal.
Yep, click where it says portal, not Battle Mechs.
Whoops.
Click the portal. So if you click this portal section, you can click on subcategories. So like what Scott was saying, like where it says Inner Sphere Mechs. So say you were playing Federated Sons because you actually know what you're doing and they're the best faction. So click Federated Sons there, Scott.
Yeah, if you're a real Zach Morris and you play Federated Sons, here you go.
If you scroll down there, it gives a list of these are like, they have access to other mechs than this, and some other factions may have access to these mechs, but these are kind of like the iconic mechs. So if you built your army out of only mechs on this list, it's going to be pretty heavily themed Federated Sons. And you can do that with most factions off this website. So if you're worried about who can have what, you can kind of click, like there's Scott's Hell Sources. It'll kind of give you a list of these are mechs that Hell Sources use.
There you go.
Once again, it's not all of them, but it gives you a rough idea.
Between this and the list of generals, there's usually a list of clan generals or inner sphere generals.
Yeah, if you go back.
So clan general.
Clan general.
There you go.
And there's a bunch of like, this is pretty much like mechs that any clan can use for the most part.
Yeah. It's like a rhino, you know, everyone uses this fucking thing. So
right. So that's a good site. So leave that up. The next one is that Battletech master unit list. This is the site you're going to probably use more than anything. And this is also how you're going to build your army most times. You're going to always have to have this tab open. So the way this basically works, this is the homepage. You can go over to the search box and search anything you want, or you can click on units, eras, factions, any of that stuff. So let's do factions first.
Okay.
So let's say you've decided you want to play Capellans. They're the first one there. So say you want to play House Liao Capellans. Click that. Then if you go down to the all the way to the right, it has eras. So if you scroll down, Scott, without clicking on anything, so all those are highlighted. So what that first tells you is the Capellans have been around since the Star League, and they're still alive all the way up until the Dark Ages. So they've been around since the beginning, and they've never went away. They've always existed. So click any of those eras you want, Scott. It doesn't matter.
Let's get real. Let's go to the fucking Jihad.
Jihad. All right. So if you were going to play Capellans during the Jihad era, you would click Capellan, then you would click Jihad era. Then you have these little tabs at the top where it says Battle Mech, Combat Vehicle, Aerospace, whatever. So we'll keep on Battle Mechs. So if you see, they have access to 569 different Battle Mechs in this era. So if you're playing Capellans during Jihad, this list that Scott's scrolling through are the only mechs that they have access to. So if you're building an army list and you've gotten together with your friends and you want to play in that era and you want to play Capellans, this is the list of mechs that you have to choose from.
Mm-hmm.
So say you wanted to pick a mech. It doesn't matter which mech, Scott. So this is obviously a mech on their list. You click on that mech. So if you're playing Alpha Strike, you would already have your rules right there. There's your free Alpha Strike card.
Bang.
If you're playing Classic, this mech is in this record sheet 3050 upgrade unabridged right there, and that's the cover of that. So you would need to go, if you wanted this mech and you don't already own this book and you want the rules, you would then have to go to your drive-through RPG and buy that book to have that record sheet.
And it would look something like maybe this one on the right one.
That's it.
Yeah. So it's a little something like this.
Yeah, and then you would just find that mech in this book and find that exact variant because they all have different serial numbers.
Yep.
So
click on the wrong one. It's this one.
There's clan one, not the Intersphere one.
It looks
click on the Dasher? Which variant of the Dasher?
The Dasher.
B.
Yeah. B.
So Scott would scroll down, find Dasher, click on Dasher. That's the Prime. Then you'll have the A variant and then the B variant. So that one right there. So you would take this sheet, you'd print it off, and then you'd have that unit, and then you go on to the next unit. So this is basically how you build an army list. You're going to go to the master unit list, see what mechs are available, and then one by one cross-reference those with the rules that you have handy and decide which mechs you want, print them off.
Yep. And an easy way to do this, if you're looking for, this is tons. This goes from smallest to largest. So it starts at 20 tons. If you know your mech's fucking bigger, you can go all the way down. Here you go. You're at 85. You see, you got your longbow.
It also has the battle value right next to it, and that's the actual battle value for Classic.
So that's
and
your
the points value, which is next to that, is for Alpha Strike.
Yep. So
then the thing next to it where it says TRO/RS, the first thing is the abbreviation for what technical readout. So that's going to be the Fluff. If you want to find the Fluff on that mech, you click on that and it will tell you what book that the Fluff is in. And then if you click on the other half, what is that? Is my cat doing something weird? If you click on that other half, that shows you where the rules are at.
Yep.
So
this is every mech that is in 3060 unabridged on this list. A cool thing about this, if you're like economically minded or whatever, and you want to make sure you have the mechs you buy carry across as many eras as possible, because you could say click on this Cossack. I'm a compelling player. I want to play this fucking silly thing or whatever. You can click over here, see these scroll bars, and these are the people who have access to this in what eras. So you could buy a mech that, like you see here, this Cossack can be played by the Compellans in 2 different, potentially 3 different eras. So you could buy a mech, and then regardless if you're playing any of these eras, you have a mech that you're getting your money's worth because you can play it in any of them that had access to it. So
and then for example, search an Ostwar, Scott, OSTWAR.
Okay.
Click it doesn't matter. Click the top one. Okay, now see it says click on Star League, the Star League drop down, like you were. So you can see it's extinct already.
Yeah. They didn't make it.
Because they only had one of them or whatever. But if you go down and you click all those, it'll just keep saying extinct. But I wanted to show this because I knew it was extinct in a lot. So sometimes you'll have a mech and you'll click, and in an era, it'll say who has it. And then you'll go to the next era, and it'll just say extinct, meaning no one has it anymore.
The only factory left that built it got nuked or blown up or destroyed during a hostile takeover or something.
Right. So that's just an example of that. So this master list thing is really handy. The other thing you can do if you click that force drop down.
Alpha Strike Builder.
Yep. So you can search for a unit and build your list like Mad Dog. And then you can add this. So just click add. And it'll add. And then, so if you're playing Alpha Strike, you can literally set your skill or whatever, and you can put all your cards. Yeah. And you can basically build your entire army list on here and then print off all the cards for your army.
And it factors in like the increase in points for if you want a better pilot or some shit like that. Boom.
Yep. So if you're playing Alpha Strike, you're going to use this thing all the time. It's basically a list builder. Also has all the rules and all that for Alpha Strike.
There you have it.
So the other thing, the next online resource is the Battletech International Facebook page. We talked about that a little bit. Scott can go there or not go there if he wants to, whatever he wants to do.
Dildo of the Month Club. What? No, that's not.
Who was searching that?
Oh, jeez. Battletech International.
Yep. So this is a cool Facebook page. This is probably the biggest Battletech Facebook page. The other cool thing is...
There you go. That's the dude who runs Strato Minis, the designer, Bishop Simon.
Okay, cool.
Frequent poster. So Battletech Customs, and I'm on them all, brother. And Customs, got it right here. Hey. Here you go.
Michael, I don't have my phone on me, but I'm seeing Scott's window. Are we in the final countdown?
Yeah, you're getting close there.
Okay.
To the 3-hour mark.
Okay. Battletech Painting Custom. Here we are. So this is also a website where people like to post hobby shit, you know, inspiration. Look at this cool little thing.
Yeah. So you also have camospecs.com is another good online resource that will show you how to like if you're looking how to paint certain models or you're really wanting to make your models look like a certain faction. These people have all in order to post on this website, you essentially have to like be very heavily vetted. It's almost like getting a top secret security clearance for the fucking military in real life. So if you go over to the search bar and type in like a really cool unit like Davian Heavy Guards or something like that, you can bring up.
Oh, fuck! I had already clicked on something. Sorry.
Oh. Type in Davian Heavy Guards. Like, say you picked on these guys and you wanted to play them.
Davian Heavy Gaylords
Guards.
All right. I'm gonna spell guards. Jesus God, Scott. Try to hold it together. Guards, right? There we go. Guards.
But anyway, like you can click on that Atlas sculpt down there. It says random miniatures. Like that. And it'll show you, like, this is an example of a Davian Heavy Guards unit in an RTC.
Yeah.
You can get an idea of how to paint your models if you want to play this specific unit.
Mm-hmm.
And it'll tell you in their color scheme. It'll tell you where their insignia goes, like where they put their Legion markings, like if it's on the upper torso on the right side, things like that. So it's basically if you want to be a Battletech fake historical rivet counter, this is like the type of website you want to go to.
Yep, they will, like any little one-off unit. Like I play the 4th Alliance Guards of the Lyran LAAF. I can type that in, I can look them up, and it can tell me exactly where I put my decals and all that shit to be like, quote, accurate, unquote.
Yep. So, man, we're running out of time here. I thought we had infinite time, Michael. What's the deal?
We can do a part 2.
Be quick. This ain't quick. We 2 hours and 15.
So
we can get into rules and stuff on a part 2.
Yeah, we could do that. So real quick though, let's do so there's certain gaming aids, like if you want to play classic, that makes the game go much, much faster. So the best thing to do is you get your record sheet that you want to play with, print it off, and then get these little clear things like you would put in a 3-ring binder. Sheet protectors. And you put them in there. You get like, you can go to Walmart and get hundreds of them for a few bucks or whatever. They go in like a 3-ring binder. but you put your sheets in here like that, and then you buy a dry erase marker, and then you saw the sheet. It looks like an SAT score, like when you take like 7 damage to your arm or whatever.
I got mine available. Hand me that binder.
You make your.
Oh no, I can't. Never mind.
You just mark your little dots or whatever on your arm, and then after you get done with the game, you can just wipe it away. Or if you make a mistake, you wipe it away or whatever, and you're not constantly having to reprint sheets or anything.
Yep.
And things like heat, where you're marking it up, and then later on when you cancel more heat out, you mark it off. It makes it easy to change all that without like erasing a whole.
You don't have to kill
through your
reinforced
sheet.
every game.
Yep, you can buy like military dudes. You know what map markers are. Buy some permanent map markers. It's very fine tip Sharpie. Basically, you can write on there with that, and then just to erase it, just take any rubbing alcohol, put it on a cotton ball after the game's over, and you can just clean it off. So,
yeah. So, the next thing that's a great game aid if you're playing Classic is the little the dividers that Chris showed us, where you roll dice, like where you can roll several sets of dice at once.
Plastic small toolbox, maybe.
Plastic, what would you call that?
Screw organizer, maybe.
Yeah. People will know what we're talking about. Like that right there.
Perfect.
You can find these at Walmart. You can find these on Amazon, whatever. They're called different names.
Brought to you by Michaels. Michaels, your go-to for all your Battletech odds.
So anyway, you take this box, because Battletech, everything's on 2 dice. So say you're shooting your LBX 20 and you roll really high on the cluster chart and you get 18 hits. So now you're going to have to roll 18 individual locations, and each location requires 2d6. So you can't just roll 36 dice all at once, because you don't know which pair of dice goes with what. So the only way to do it is technically to roll 2 dice, have somebody record the location, then do 2 dice. That takes fucking forever. So what you do is you buy little bitty, like, what are they, like 8mm dice or something like that?
Yep.
Go to Chessex and get the little dice.
The brick of 36.
The brick of 36 dice, and you put 2 dice in each of those compartments that Scott's zoomed in on right now. So imagine that thing with 2 dice in each compartment. Then you close the lid. Then say you score 18 hits. On the lid, take a Mr. Yuck sticker or a fucking magic marker or whatever you want to write, and you just mark one corner of that divider, and that's the corner that you're always going to start at. And you tell your opponent, I'm going to start here and read left to right. And you take that whole thing and you shake that entire thing, and then you lay it flat on the table, and you're going to have 2 dice that are separated by each compartment. You're going to start from the left, and that's going to be a 7. And you'll tell them, first location 7, they'll mark it. Then you'll go second location 9, and they'll mark it. And you just keep going. That way you don't have to roll individual dice. And man, this speeds up the game so much. So much. This is a lifesaver as far as like game aids.
It's mandatory. Fucking get it. Yeah.
Definitely mandatory. So then the next thing you can do is buy red dice, black dice, and white dice, D6s. And when you do any type of moving, you have to keep track of all these modifiers and things in Classic. So whether if I'm moving my mech, I need to keep track of whether that mech walked, ran, or jumped for my own. Because if I walk, it's 1 harder for me to hit things when I shoot, because I'm moving while I'm trying to shoot. If I run, it's 2 harder. If I jump, it's 3 harder. So if I have a mech that walks, I put a white die behind it. If I have a mech that runs, I put a black die behind it. If I have a mech that jumps, I put a red die behind it. That way, when I look at my mech and I go to shoot that mech after I've moved it, I can quickly see, oh, that's a red die. It's +3 to hit. So whatever. Then on the flip side of that, depending on how far you move your mech, regardless of what mode you move it in, there's a modifier that your opponent has to add based on your mech speed. So if you have a mech that moves 9 inches, that's a +3. So say that mech ran 9 inches. So you'd put a black die for running, and you would put the 3 side facing up, which means it's a 3 modifier. So when I look at that mech, the black die tells me that I'm running, so I need to add +2 to hit. And when my opponent looks at it, he just sees that it's a 3 on that mech, so he needs to add 3 to hit that mech. I know if you don't know the rules, that probably went over your head.
They break that down in the very beginning of the rules.
Yeah, totally. Like, no idea what you just said.
Okay, well, it's hard without doing an example or someone knowing the
They
rules.
break it down in the rule book too, in the new rule book.
But I'm just saying you're going to need those dice. If you want to play Classic, you're going to need white, red, and black dice and basically do what I showed. I can film a little 30-second video. I literally explained it in less than a minute on a video that I threw on our Battletech Facebook page. But that's something you'll definitely need. So once again, the color represents how you moved your mech for your modifier, and then the number that you face up is the modifier that your opponent needs for when they're shooting at that mech. So it keeps track of everything, so it's visual, and you're not constantly having to try to remember, oh, what moved what, and it just makes the game go way faster.
So one other thing guys might want to be aware of is there's a new Battletech box set coming out sometime next month. Hopefully. Maybe, possibly. Well, this little box set, as you can imagine, it's not on here yet, and I don't know that anyone has a fucking...
It's right there. There's the 2 boxes.
This one, click on this. Okay, so it's going to look like this and this. It's going to come with really, really good sculpts inside of it. So these right here. This is coming from Catalyst Game Labs. These are plastic sculpts, but they look great. They've been redone, but they're, you know, very, very serviceable. It'll come with all the cool gaming stuff you need. You need this. It comes with a shitload of Intersphere mechs that pretty much everyone uses.
Comes with 8.
Well, yeah, 8. So there you go. For I think the box is what, $75. So
$60.
$60. And
you get a novel, you get several map sheets, you get a bunch of like little fluff booklets, you get all the Alpha Strike cards, you get the record sheets for Classic for those mechs, and you get the 8 mechs. The beginner box is only $20, and it comes with, it's basically the same thing, but it just comes with 2 mechs. So the beginner box comes with a Griffin and a Wolverine, and it's the only place to get the Griffin, which is the mech that's actually featured on the cover. The Wolverine that's in the beginner box also comes in the Game of Armored Combat box. So if you want every single sculpt from Catalyst of the 8 mechs that come in Armored Combat, and then the 2 mechs that come in beginner box, one of them in the beginner box is repeated in the other box. So you'll end up with 2 Wolverines if you buy both, but the beginner box is the only way to get the Griffin. And the retail on them is $60 and $20, but you can... on eBay, the beginner box, which is already out actually for sale, they're already on, like, people are selling them for like 20% off already. So you can get it for like $15.
They pre-released them at Gen Con, and all 500 copies were gone in like 3 hours.
Yes. Okay. So it's right now, it's real hard to get that starter box.
The number one thing that you guys need to know that comes in this box is a fucking cardboard reference card. So like we said, we haven't really talked about the rules. We'll get to that maybe on another episode, but all the shit you really need to know to look at right in front of you while you're playing the game will be on this cardboard reference card. And the thing is fucking gold. Like, it makes playing this very easy, very streamlined. If you can play Heresy or 30K or anything else, you can fucking play this game too once you grasp it. But that card will help you out a lot. It helps me out a lot.
Yep. So the last thing I want to talk about on this, and then we'll be done. How much time we got left, Michael? Do you know?
Looks like 35 minutes, maybe.
35 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. So there you'll see reference to people talking about seen or unseen mechs. So I'm just going to read this right off the Wikipedia page. If you went to, and I don't mean Sarna Wikipedia, I mean actual Wikipedia under Battletech. There's a section called the unseen. This explains it better than I could, so I'm just going to read it. It says, rather than create their own original robot art, FASA decided to use already existent designs that had originally been created for a variety of different Japanese anime, including Dogram, Crusher Joe, and Macross. The rights to these images were licensed from 20th Century Imports, TCI. In later years, FASA abandoned these images as a result of a lawsuit brought against them by Playmates and Harmony Gold over the use of said images. So basically what happened was this 20th Century Imports licensed the images out to FASA and Harmony Gold at the same time. And Harmony Gold went on to make Robotech. And so like a Robotech, what's the archer called in Robotech? Do you remember?
It's a Destroid of some sort. Dilemma.
You don't know the actual name of it?
No.
Okay. Anyway, so the same mech design was basically in Robotech and in Battletech. It was the same robot called different things because the same company licensed it to two different people. So it started this fucking legal fight. So instead of they fought this out in the courts, but while this was going on, in 2007, classic Battletech line developer Randall Bills explained that FASA had sued Playmates over the use of the images owned by FASA. Although Playmates was ordered to stop using the images in question, FASA received no financial compensation. FASA realized that the use of these licensed images made them vulnerable to lawsuits and worried that such a suit would bankrupt the company. Following the suit, FASA made the decision to use only images that they produced on themselves. So the anime source battle mechs continued to be referenced in universe, but their images were no longer seen in any of the official source books. This led to them being termed by fans as the unseen. When Fantasy Productions licensed the copyrights resided with its creators, not the company, Catalyst Game Labs has continued this practice. So basically what happened was, due to this legal fight, they basically redesigned it. So like the Marauder that Scott is showing on the screen right now, put your cursor over it, Scott. The Marauder. That's the Marauder. Originally, it looked slightly different than that. If you go to like Robotech, like there's a game called Robotech Tactics, there's a Destroid in that game that looks almost just like that.
Zentradi Commander Battle Pod.
Yeah, there you go. Zentradi Commander Battle Pod is the old Marauder model.
How the fuck do you spell that one?
Who fucking cares? We don't give a shit about Harmony Gold. But anyway, so people, when they say this is an unseen mech, basically they're just meaning it's the old model that FASA made before the lawsuit, and it's that old sculpt. So like that model right there, stop right there. Next to the chick, there's a robot right there. That's the old Valkyrie model. So there's an old Battletech Valkyrie sculpt that basically looks like that.
Wasp.
Or a wasp, whatever. But now it looks different. They basically redesigned it. So somebody says they have the unseen model, it just means it's an old-ass model. And to be honest with you, I don't like the way they look anymore. They're very fucking 80s. They're dated. There are a lot of collectors and a lot of big-time Battletech nerds that fall over themselves.
They're dated. They're made by Ralph Partha. A lot of times those old-ass ones that were the unseens from the 80s were made in lead, so they haven't aged well. What happens is all the edges get worn and rounded down on them.
Yeah, and they also, they're usually monopose, like real bad because of the old Ralph Partha ones. There was somebody, and I'm not trying to... What?
Every miniature stores has Ralph Partha miniatures in it. They're like the fucking, the ones you would use for D&D and stuff.
Yeah.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah. So like, for example, there was a guy, and I'm not shitting on this guy. So this guy listened to the episode, don't write me an email. I'm not, it is what it is. Some guy was bragging that he found some old collection some guy had, didn't know what he had, and bought all these unseen models. And he was flipping, and all these other people were, oh, it's so great. I mean, I personally could give I wouldn't give him $10 for that whole thing. I know it's worth more than that. I don't care. I don't like those models. It doesn't mean anything to me, but some people that means a lot too. But that's all that the unseen are, is that. So if you see people reference seen or unseen, it just means an older sculpt that isn't available anymore due to lawsuits. But it doesn't mean you can't play with that model or whatever. Rules-wise, it's still a go. You can still play with that model. I know you're wanting to show off the Battletech, what you're showing there, the color compendium.
Look how fucking sexy this goddamn thing is, man. I love this 3D file, man.
So this was made by fans, and it was up on the Battletech forums, but now it's not available for download. The reason we have it is we downloaded it before it went unavailable. So if you guys need this, we just have it where we can send you the file. I mean, this was just a fan-made file, and it has it's basically like camo specs, but instead of being a website, it's just a file with a bunch of color schemes in it. And what they've done is they've used the models, the 3D models from the Battletech Mech Warrior Online video game, and did custom color skins on the models to represent the different units and factions. So you can scroll through here, like here's Scott's Hell's Horses, and it'll give you a little bit of info on units and color schemes.
Sexy. Fuck yeah. That's what got me. That was the one.
So I guess how much time we got, Michael?
He's dead.
Like 30 minutes or so.
30 minutes.
minutes.
So real quick, just to clear up some other, these are like some quick questions that I get asked a lot. So do the factions play different and have different rules? So not really. So the difference is basically mech availability, which we kind of went over that. Like if you go to the Battletech unit master list, go back to the master list real quick, Scott, if you still have that tab open.
I do somewhere.
There are certain mechs that are basically faction mechs. Like only one faction is ever going to have the mech. Do a search for an Argus. I know for a fact that that's not available to anyone.
ARGUS.
Yep. So it doesn't matter which one you click on. Click on any of them. And then go over to the faction availability little drop downs like you were showing earlier. This is only ever going to be available to the Federated Sons. It's basically a Federated Sons only mech. So although Federated Sons don't technically have any special rules, they do have mechs that only they are technically supposed to have. There are examples of mechs like this for almost any faction in the game.
Yep.
So like that Giuliano that I showed the model of earlier on Iron Winds, that's a Merrick only mech. If you want to play Giuliano, you got to play Merrick. So that's basically the difference in the factions.
Talk about blazing that one over.
What?
There's only like 4 sub-factions in Merrick because Merrick's still a fraction. It's like a fractured.
Oh, I've got that.
Yeah.
We're going to get into that. So anyway, that's basically, just to answer the question real quick, that's the main difference between factions. Oh, look, Clan Wolf has it for some damn reason.
Do they occupy a huge chunk of their space?
Okay. But anyway, you can see, like, in order to play that mech, it's very limited in what factions have it, essentially. So that's the main difference between factions. If you're playing really super heavy campaign and you get really hot and heavy into it, and you buy some of those like campaign books or error report books, every once in a while in there, they'll have like very specific special rules for an exact unit. So maybe like for the 7th Crucius Lancers, when this one guy was in command during this one battle.
During the FedCom Civil War, you might get a +1 to your initiative rolls all game.
Right. So, but that's not, I wouldn't pick a faction based on that because they're very specific to campaign books. There are a few special rules like that, but for the most part, the only difference is going to be mech availability between the factions.
Yield Yin Lo Wong.
Yeah. So the next question is, the main, like, people get confused on the main factions in the game and their names changing. So a lot of times in the fluff, different things will happen. So I'm going to kind of go through these really quick. So people, I'm not going to dwell on it. I'm going to go through these. I'll probably miss some, but these are the ones that I can quickly remember what changed. So House Davian is the Federated Sons. So when you hear Federated Sons or House Davian, you're talking about the same people. The Federated Sons is the political entity. House Davian is the ruling family that runs that political entity. At one point in time, the Davian family married into the Steiner family, and they conjoined, and they became what's called the Federated Commonwealth. So when you hear House Davian, Federated Sons, or Federated Commonwealth, it's all basically the same faction at different points in time. So those are all the same people. Then you have House Steiner. So this one's really fucking confusing. So House Steiner is the ruling family, right? So they're just like the Davians were. They're the ruling family, and they run something called the Lyran Commonwealth originally.
Yes.
The Lyran Commonwealth then intermarries with the Federated Sons and becomes the Federated Commonwealth. Later on, after the Civil War, they split apart. After they split apart, they become the Lyran Alliance. Then later on, they decide to go back to their original name of the Lyran Commonwealth. So if somebody says House Steiner, Lyran Commonwealth, or Lyran Alliance, it's all the same people, just at different timelines. Then you have House Liao. House Liao, once again, is a ruling family. They rule over the Compelling Confederation. So the Confederation is the political entity. House Liao is the ruling family. At one point in time, a section of them splits off and becomes the St. Ives Compact. So they really are a different political entity, and they actually don't really like the House Liao. Some of them do, some of them don't, but they become their own thing. And then they get reabsorbed. So if you hear anyone talk about House Liao,
St. Ives.
Yeah, House Liao, St. Ives, or the Compelling Confederation, they're all kind of the same people at different times. Then you have House Kurita. House Kurita, once again, is a ruling family, a bloodline. They're not, and then they rule over the Draconis Combine. They're the same people. The Draconis Combine is the easiest one of all these great houses because it's always just the Draconis Combine. They've never fractured or whatever. But if you hear somebody say Kurita or Draconis Combine, it's the same people. Lastly, this is the really fucked up one. So this is Merrick. So House Merrick is the ruling.
Dead.
Well, they're the ruling.
They're dead.
Hang on. They're the ruling family, and they ruled over this area called the Free Worlds League. So the Free Worlds League is basically like the EU, so it's all these little nations. Well, at one point, they basically fracture, and they become the fractured part of it. The different fractured parts are the Orient Protectorate, the Regulan Fiefs, the Rim Commonality, the Taramand Abbey District, the Duchy of Hondurian, and the Merrick Stewart Commonwealth.
Which are basically the small independent nations that were involved that became the overall
right.
in the first place.
So depending on what timeline you're playing in Merrick, you're either going to be one of these little bitty entities or you're going to be all allied together in House Merrick.
Basically, the true bloodline got killed off, and there's a big debate over who should really be.
Right. So depending on what timeline you play in, if you see any of these names, don't get confused. It's all the same people. So Merrick, Free Worlds League, and then all those other little ones that I named off, I'm not going to read again. They're all the same people, just at different points in time. Then you have this entity called Comstar. Comstar has a civil war of their own, and they have a subfaction split off called the Word of Blake. So if you hear Word of Blake or Comstar, they're kind of two sides of the same coin. In 40K terms, it would be the Mechanicum and the Dark Mechanicum, basically. So Comstar / Word of Blake are kind of the same. They started the same and they split apart. Then you have this place called the Republic of the Sphere. The Republic of the Sphere, how would you explain that? They were like a coalition that came about during the Jihad that had to be put together to defeat the Word of Blake. And they have elements of different clans. They have elements of all the great houses. They have all this shit. And they formed this giant coalition called the Republic of the Sphere. And they're only in the later timeline. So like Scott's bringing up there, you can see they only exist from the Jihad on. They don't exist before then because that's when they started. So if you want to play them, you have to basically play late timeline. Then you have this place called the Free Rosalhog Republic. So the Curetans used to own them. They were all part of the same territory. And well, mostly the Curetans, but we'll start there because that's why they split off. So Rosalhog was a district of the Draconis Combine / House Kurita, and they wanted freedom.
Full of a lot of Nordic people.
Yes, they're basically space Swedes. So if you like Nordic culture, Scandinavians, they're space Scandinavians. So you can see here, they started, put your cursor up. Is that they started late Succession War. They split off and became their own entity. Later on, the clans invade, and Clan Ghostbear absorbs them, and they end up turning into the Rosalhog Dominion. So basically, pre-Late Succession War, that area space was Curetan. Then once they became their own entity, they're the Rosalhog Republic, and then once Ghostbear takes them over and assimilates them, they become the Rosalhog Dominion. All the same people, different faction names based on different eras. Next, you have the clan stuff. So for one, the clans, you have what's called homeworld clans, and then you have inner sphere clans. So homeworld clans are clans that always stayed in the homeworlds and never invaded the inner sphere. Inner sphere clans are ones that invaded. So say you want to play clans, you may not want to pick a homeworld clan because you're
only ever going to fight other clans historically.
Correct. So you can't play Clan Star Adder and then fight them against like Steiner shit. I mean, you can, but it'd be like playing Flames of War and having Italians landing in Florida and fighting Americans on. It doesn't make a lot of sense. You know what I'm saying?
Oh God.
So that there's an important difference between homeworld and inner sphere clans. So just be aware of that. Then also the clans break down into Crusader clans and Warden clans. That's not super important for
Hawks and Doves, basically.
Yeah. So like the Warden clans, they're against the invasion of the inner sphere. They don't think the inner sphere should be invaded. They think that they've developed their own culture and the clans should just do their own thing and leave the inner sphere alone. The Crusader clans think that they were driven out of the inner sphere in the past and that it's their destiny to take back over the inner sphere and
Crusade mentality, Middle Ages.
Yeah. So that's kind of the difference there. So Clan Ghost Bear, once they invade the inner sphere, they assimilate Razelhog and become the Razelhog Dominion. So if you're playing Clan Ghost Bear, you're Clan Ghost Bear one day, and then you become the Razelhog Dominion depending on era. Though it's the same people, but people need to know that. Same thing happens to Clan Snow Raven. They're Clan Snow Raven. They move to the inner sphere. They take over this shitty little periphery nation called the Outworlds Alliance, and they become the Raven Alliance. I don't know why you would ever play Outworld Alliance, but obviously they work in reverse. If you're playing Outworlds Alliance, you're Outworlds Alliance one day, and then you become Raven Alliance once you integrate with the Ravens. Same faction, though. Clan Wolf. Clan Wolf's weird because they split in two, and both entities still exist. So you have Clan Wolf, and then you have Clan Wolf in Exile. And they basically the Warden elements of Clan Wolf became Clan Wolf in Exile, and the Crusader elements stayed Clan Wolf. So at one point in time, they're together, and then late Clan Invasion, they split apart right before the Civil War and become two separate entities. And then later on in the timeline, they join back together again and become the Wolf Empire, which is basically just Clan Wolf Reborn. The other funny one is Clan Sea Fox. So Clan Sea Fox, so all the clans are named after a totem animal that's a real space critter. So like Clan Ghost Bear in the clan worlds, there's a legit animal called a Ghost Bear that's a real animal that they base their totem on. So Clan Sea Fox have this thing that's like a seal. It's basically like a space seal called a Sea Fox, and that's what their clan's based on. Well, they basically get in this rivalry with Clan Snow Raven, and Snow Raven, being dickheads, genetically engineer a new animal, like build an animal from scratch called a diamond shark, and release it on the home world of the Sea Fox. And the diamond shark proceeds to eat all the sea foxes, and so their totem animal becomes extinct. So the Clan Sea Fox basically renames their totem animal. They lose their totem animal, and they take on this new animal, the diamond shark, because it killed all of them. And then later on, they get rid of all the diamond sharks and genetically engineer their old animal and bring it back from extinction. So anyway, they're Sea Fox, then they become diamond shark, and then later on they go back to Sea Fox. But it's the same people, just different timelines. So they're the weirdest. So if you click on Sea Fox there, Scott.
Matt, okay.
Next to Razelhog. Oh, you just missed it. You missed it. It's above Smoke Jaguar. Right there. If you look at their availability. Oh, why does it? Anyway, I guess they were already Diamond Shark by the time they invaded.
Yeah, they were a homeworld clan before that. So
okay. Anyway, but they changed. So if you hear anything Sea Fox or Diamond Shark, it's the same people.
Look at Nova Cats.
Well, I'm not worried about that. But then you have Clan Stone Lion. Clan Stone Lion, they had this thing called the Wars of Reaving in clan space where a bunch of clans got killed off. And they basically invented a new clan from scratch from the remnants of a lot of these killed off clans called Clan Stone Lion. So Clan Stone Lion they're a homeworld clan. And if you look, they're only available in the Jihad. So they're pretty fucking limited on when you can play them. So if you want to play these guys, I don't know what to tell you. It's pretty slim pickings on exactly when you can play them. Then you have mercenaries. So the mercenaries are broke down into, you have generic mercenaries, which are, there's a lot of famous regiments. And then there's also, if you want to build a generic mercenary regiment, you would just use the generic mercenaries. It's all the way down, Scott. It's in its totally separate section. Oh, go up. This is different than my phone. Go up, 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 up. Right there. Yep. So these are generic mercenaries. Then you also have, because they're Super Mary Sue and they're like the Ultramarines of Battletech. If you go back, Scott.
Oh, God.
You have the Kellhounds and the Wolves Dragoons, which are also just mercenaries, but they're such special mercenaries that they get their own mech availability and their own shit. So these Wolf Dragoon guys right here are technically the most famous military unit in all of Battletech history. And they have a lot of unique shit that's only available to this one military unit and no one else.
Surprise, it's all the best. It's all.
Well, there's a reason for it. At least these guys have a reason.
So, and the Kellhounds are basically the diet version of these guys. So the Kellhounds are once again mercenaries up there.
Two rich boys get together and form a merc unit and have a good time.
Yeah. But anyway, they're still mercs, but they get some of their own special shit. But if you see anything about Kellhounds, Wolf Dragoons, or mercenaries, they're all mercenaries, but some of them are special mercenaries. Then you have your periphery nations, bandit kingdoms and pirates. The thing with those guys are like the Sinus Federation, they're only around for a certain amount of time and then they disappear. So all of these like periphery nations, bandit kingdoms, and pirates, most of them are only around for certain timelines because they're...
Unless you're Irish Romans.
Well, they're very volatile because they're so small and have such a small power base. A lot of the times they either get conquered and absorbed, just get smashed by the clans and whatever, or they are a bandit kingdom and then grow into their own periphery nation. So these are very timeline specific entities usually.
There's only like 2 or 3 that are enduring, like the Taurians.
Yeah, the Taurians, the Magistry of Canopus,
which is like Vegas in space, and then the Irish.
The Marian hegemony. They're the only real periphery nations that have staying power that are around for a long time. Like these Cernus Federation guys aren't really around the whole time.
The hegemony was really pirates that became a legitimate nation. They're based off the Roman Empire, but they're ran by the O'Reillys, which are Irish. Go figure.
Yeah. So anyway, if you want a breakdown on all this stuff and why they're around and how they get killed off, once again, just go back to Lore Warrior. Lore Warrior has videos over almost every one of these factions. If you go and dig through his videos, you can even just search Lore Warrior and then the name of the faction you want on YouTube, and the video will usually come up.
Taurians summed up in 20 seconds. Angry Spaniards hate FedCom.
Yeah. So the next question, real quick, is this game still supported? Yes, it's still supported. Catalyst isn't a great company. Will you go turn my alarm off on my phone? But they still support it. They literally just came out with that new box set at Gen Con. So they just got a new box set. The rule book is brand new. So that's still fully supported. That's a question. Is there a community? Are there big events? The only big events that are usually ran every year are Gen Con. Gen Con, the biggest miniature gaming events at Gen Con are Battletech events. Like Battletech has hundreds and hundreds of Battletech events. You can run Alpha Strike. There's all kinds of campaign stuff or whatever. So like, it's like the like when people go to play Heresy, the big event that they always want to go to is usually Adepticon. Gen Con is like that for Battletech. And there's a huge Battletech community. The thing with Battletech is it's typically just played like by dudes in their basement, but you would be shocked at the amount of people that play Battletech or have Battletech miniatures or have played MechWarrior Online games or any of that.
Catalyst usually gears all their new releases for the convention season too, between like June and August.
Yes. So it's real easy to find people play Battletech. If you get on Facebook, you'd be super surprised how many people play Battletech or have Battletech miniatures near you. people always ask how big is a normal game or how expensive is the game to get into. Once again, if you play Classic Battletech plays a lot like Heresy, where it's very pretty much it's even more Heresy than Heresy in the fact that the only way to play Classic is story. There's really no Classic Battletech tournaments. It was never designed to play that way. That's one of the reasons that the community, I wouldn't call it underground. I would just say it's very it's usually close-knit groups that play amongst themselves. You can't really go and play at an event with Classic just because there's so many eras, there's so many factions, and it'd be real hard for, I'm going to paint a Sinus Federation army and then go to Gen Con. It's I'm going to have to find a very specific event that those guys can be able to, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's not really a thing. So you usually end up just playing with your local club and you decide, well, we want to play this in this timeline, doing this specific thing amongst these factions, and we'll all pick a different faction. That's why you don't have a lot of events. So typically if you go to a con and there's an event there, it's typically going to be an Alpha Strike event, because Alpha Strike is more...
Well, Classic Battletech events, everything's usually supplied. All the miniatures are brought by a club that brings it and puts on the event.
Right. At an event. If you play in your basement, you obviously do whatever the hell you want.
This year's big event was supposed to be going with the Dark Age. It was a huge one with the Republic fighting the Curetans, basically.
Right. So if you play Classic Battletech, you're typically only going to use a company or less of mechs, which is 12 mechs or less. That's going to be roughly 12 to 15,000 points. That's what we play, but you can really play any points value. If you want a faster game, just play a Lance-based game, which would be basically 5,000 points, something like that. If you want a longer game, play companies, whatever. If you play Alpha Strike, I'm not super familiar with Alpha Strike, but you can play a company-sized game, which is 12 mechs, pretty fast. So that game scales quickly. People always want to know if you can customize your mechs or things like that. You can. But if you're playing Classic Battletech, it's sort of frowned upon, especially in one-off games. If you're playing a campaign, it makes a little more sense because there's rules for if this mech's custom, it takes longer to repair it, costs more money to repair it. It's built in.
Or if you want to do one-off Solaris games.
I have that written down. So if you're really into customizing shit, there's this planet called Solaris 7, which is basically UFC, but with mechs.
Yeah.
So they build these giant arenas and have Robo-Jock style fucking mech fights, and all the mechs there are basically one-off custom mechs that are run by stables, like you would have stables of gladiators. These stables have stables of mechs and mech warriors, and they basically put on fights and then they broadcast them on pay-per-view all over the inner sphere. So if you're really, really into just creating your own shit, customizing stuff, just play a campaign on Solaris and just do Solaris fights. It fits the fluff perfect, and there's actually books out there on it, and there's rule sets to do that if you really like customizing shit.
Hey, I got one thing I need to talk about real quick. Decals, Fighting Piranha Graphics. You can go here, Classic Battletech. You can click on Clans, Inner Sphere. It has all that shit in there. So if you went to Camo Specs, found out you wanted to play 6th Com Guard, you click here, boom, that's the decals for them. So and Camo Specs tell you where to put them. Also down here, Miscellaneous. You can click on Miscellaneous, and he's got all kinds of shit in here. So he's got numbers, he's got hazard stripes, he's got pinup stuff you could put on there, Greek letters, all that. Okay, that's all.
Okay. We'll get into, we'll maybe do a short another video on how to build a list later. That was another question on here, how to build a list. There's a question, why are the models so ugly? I think we've covered that. Not all the models are ugly. There's people online, when we post shit on Facebook, that are always like, if I knew the models look like this, I'd be playing a long time ago. Where do you get these models? I think we've covered that. Some of the models are ugly. Some of them aren't. Some of them have multiple sculpts spanning years. It's just look and find what you want. You can convert your own shit. There's no reason to play with ugly models. They're as pretty as you want them to be, as long as you're, willing to dig around or whatever and find them.
The community is worse than the 40K community, though, when it comes to the painting stuff, because you will paint something and put it up, and you will have people come out of the woodwork. Well, that's not canon. That doesn't look right. I said, have you read a book in the last 10 years?
People want to be fake historical rivet counters. It's just, you just have to deal with it. What are the seen and unseen? We went over that. So here's the thing on the model, real quick, to go over the models. some people may not like that aspect of like having to print your own models or having all these different websites to buy models from or whatever. I actually like that. For me, that's part of the Battletech hobby. It's like a whole nother step that I get to do. It's like, oh, I know I found this mech on paper that looks great. How do I get a version of it that is a cool model that's something I want to actually put on a table? And then I have to do a bunch of research in order to make that happen and order mechs from different places, maybe scratch build my own thing. To me, that's fun. Yeah. To me, that's actually a cooler part of the hobby. It's not just like I buy this stock Rhino kit and that's what I have. There's a lot of leeway on, do I 3D print this? Do I, how do I make it look right? Then you get your mech sheet, like I was saying, where it shows the critical slots, where you know exactly where the equipment goes in the mech, and you get to build your own or try to find a company that makes something close. It's, to me, that's really fun, and that's one of the reasons that I'm attracted to Battletech. That's pretty much it, other than like how to build a list from scratch, which we'll have to do on a different video. What do you think, Michael, being like a new person that doesn't know anything? Is there anything we didn't cover or you're confused on or seems crazy?
I think once we get to the list building part, I think of it will start making more sense.
Okay. So you're still lost? This video didn't do you any good?
I wouldn't say that. No, definitely wouldn't say that.
So why do you like Battletech, Scott?
Me, I always knew what MechWarrior was in the periphery, but it's just a very expansive and in-depth science fiction universe that is grounded. The scale isn't so unimaginable like it is in Heresy or 40K that it's hard for me to wrap my brain around it. Like I can ground it in some sense of science, and the scale is in a way that in my mind's eye I can imagine it and immerse myself in it a little bit more, I think is what it is.
Why do you like Battletech, Chris? What's your big thing on it?
Well, as a kid, I just liked giant robots, and then I started reading the novels, and as I got older, I really got into the politics and the whole thing of the novels and the fluff. The fluff drew me in, which is what a lot of people say for 40K, or the fluff for Heresy, or 40K is what drew them in. The fluff for Battletech is what initially drew me in as a young teenager, and I've just carried on with it since. And then as the games progressed and the more advanced rules are out there, I mean, you can play it from just, hey, here's my 2 robots on 2 robots, to now I've got infantry, I've got artillery supporting, I've got air support. You could get the game with so many layers of in-depth tactics that it can get really good, and I enjoy the hell out of it.
Yeah. So my thing is, I love the fluff first and foremost. Me personally, this has the best fluff of any game I've ever played. That's me personally. That's obviously opinionated. I like hard sci-fi. This is definitely hard sci-fi. There's no fucking magic or fucking
that's a big thing.
Aliens or any of that bullshit I don't really care for. That in most other game systems I have to overlook or suffer through. I don't have to worry about that in this. That was a big selling point for me. Some people like all that shit, so this wouldn't be for them. They're going to be the opposite. But for me, that's a big selling point. I like that it's like sci-fi, military, realistic, and all the political stuff. It seems more adult than a lot of other games, I guess.
Yes.
Like it's really cool. And the fluff is amazing. It's got more fluff than any game that I'm aware of, and I pretty much love all the fluff. And then, like I said, I've gotten really into, I like modeling and hobbying a lot. I like to be able to find a mech that maybe I don't really like the model for, but I like the rules, and being able to try to order pieces or find other mechs or something that'll work and create my own model, like I did with my Crusader.
6mm is a good medium too. It can be very challenging for an experienced hobbyist to try to do more stuff with it. And at the same time, if you're a beginner, 6mm is also very giving. You don't have to be incredibly good to paint a 6mm battle mech.
Yeah, you can do a lot of like, I mean, I go a little more in depth, but like say you're doing Karita sort of light shit, you can really just almost spray paint them red and do a non-oil wash and throw some decals on it, and then paint the guns
and the
guns in the cockpit like a silver, and then the cockpit whatever, and it's going to look decent. It's really not going to look bad. It's very passable. So because it's a smaller scale, you're not painting every fucking little rivet and bolt like you do on a Rhino. So that's pretty much why I like it. So I think that pretty much covers it. I think we need to do a future episode on how to build a list like from scratch. But I think that pretty much covers most of the Battletech stuff we wanted to cover. Does anybody else have anything to add?
Lore Warrior, the Star League, parts 1 through 4. Check it out.
Yeah, just definitely listen to that if you don't do anything else.
Sounds good.
Is that it?
That's it. Go ahead, Michael. Sign us off.